going to go ahead and call the City Council meeting for August 5th to order. Please rise for the invocation. Bobby Campbell, please.
Father God, we thank you for this day, God, that we have not seen before. God, we thank you for allowing us to be here. Lord, as we take time to pray today, God, we're praying for El Paso and the persons there, praying for the families of Dayton. And God, we pray for our own community. God, we never know when evil is going to show up. It can show up in all forms and all fashions, God, and hatred is prevalent. But God, one of the things we know we can do, we can depend on you. Help us to have peace. Help us to rest in you, Father. Help us to have faith, Lord, as our faith gets weak sometime. Be with us and strengthen us, Lord. Help us as a community to know that we have to work together. We're all in this together, Father God, and we have to love together. God, we ask you to be with this council, be with them tonight as they get ready to take on the business of our community, give them the wisdom that they need. Continue to watch over them, protect them. Be with everyone that's present this evening, that's here at this meeting. Watch over them. God, we want to make sure we all are good hearers and listeners, and we work together to continue to make this a great community. God, we pray for our first responders. Be with them. Watch over them. Keep them safe, Father God. We pray for all of our staff. The works of our city can watch over them. Be with our mayor. Be with our governor. Be with our president, God. Just be with our nation, God, in this time of trouble. God, we know you have all power and all power is in your hand. We ask it all in the name of Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilperson White. Councilperson Harris.
Here.
Councilperson Maples.
Here.
Councilperson Gill. Here. Councilperson Hawkins.
Here.
Council President Stabile.
Present.
Councilperson Owen.
Here.
Councilperson Ellis.
Here.
Councilperson Samuel.
Here.
Let the record reflect all 9 members are present.
There's minutes to be approved for July 15th. So moved. A motion is second to approve the minutes. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, moving on. Approval of the agenda.
No changes. Motion to approve.
There are some changes, I believe. Okay. I've done a request to remove 14, item 14.
With that change, motion to approve.
Second.
We have motion second to approve the agenda with the removal of 14. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Claims to be approved. Civil first.
We have civil city claims tonight for $1,657,096.74.
Okay. I do have a couple. I just want you to know how we're keeping an eye on fuel costs. On page 5, I wanted to bring to your attention, I'm sure you've seen it, but we have a transfer out for fuel, another $250,000. And then I really don't know how to handle this, but I'm going to bring this on page 6. If you look under safety, the last 2, we have Premier, we have air travel for $251.96, and then we have a leadership class for $1,450. So I know his job's posted, but my question is, should the taxpayers pay for a training for somebody that's leaving the city, or is this something that he's committed to, it's required? I think we need to check into that, because I'm not trying to, Amir does a great job. I don't know the circumstances and all. I'm just questioning, should we pay for a leadership training class that happens in the end of, the training dates are from August 25th to 28th for an employee that will be leaving us. I just think we need to check into that. Does that sound fair?
Yep, makes sense.
So, is all the other claims in order?
Yes.
So So I think does anybody have any questions or anything? So I think what I want to do is go ahead and make a motion to approve the claims for the $1,657,096.74, contingent upon whether this, I don't know the circumstances around this. If this is not a requirement or something we're obligated from somebody in the city to go to, then it need to be removed. Can I do that?
Mhm.
Is that legal? Which on page 6 again, it is under safety. It's the last two there under the training. It's the $251.96 and then the $1,450. So they'll only be paid, and he sent us an email out. That I think it's something we need to check into.
Yep.
Heather, on page 12, under federal asset forfeiture, there's a $19,000 tuition for U of L. Is that for tuition for one of our police officers to go to college?
I don't know the answer to that one. I'll have to check into it.
I believe, just from experience, because I'm in that industry, I believe there's a training that's hosted by them. It's the Southern Indiana Police Institute. I think it's ran through U of L. It's a highly accredited training. I'm not saying that's what that is, but I believe that's...
Do you want me to send you a copy of the invoices that are attached?
Yes, I guess my question would be to Mr. Merkley, if we have employees that we pay tuition for, do we or can we have some agreement with them that if they leave within 3 years, they will reimburse or something?
There is a policy.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't believe if this is what that training is I was talking about, I don't believe there's any credit hours or anything like that. It's merely a law enforcement training facilitated by the University of Louisville.
For that to occur, there's a process they have to go through. So I don't believe this is it. If they did it, I'm not sure if that's possible.
Obviously you don't know because it's not credit.
No, and it's not my claim, yeah.
Do we know if it's just for one person or a whole
I have
crew?
no idea.
That's it.
Do you want to
Let's
pause
go.
on this and I
I
can go
would.
get it upstairs?
I thought, I think it's one person, but you need to verify. I'm thinking it's one person.
I can do that while you guys are getting your zones changed and all that.
That may not be it.
Okay.
That number. I'll see what table to come with.
Yeah, I would.
We
if
can do that.
that's okay with others, I'd motion to table the claims until the end of the meeting.
Yeah.
Then my motion, okay.
We have a motion and second to move claims to the last agenda item of the meeting. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right.
Do you want to take care of parks now, or do you want to do claims?
Parks are fine.
I'm fine.
Okay. I do have one addition to the parks. It is the second payment for the Devonshires, which is playing on Friday. It is $1,750, so that brings the total to $236,051.09.
So all the other claims in order?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the claims with that addition. It brings the total of $236,051.09.
Second.
We have a motion and second to go ahead and pass the parks claims as presented with that addition. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right. Report of the clerk.
I don't have anything.
All right. First up, item number 9, Heather Metcalf, 2019 OR 34, an ordinance amending 2017 OR 49, and passing first and second reading.
Right, there's no changes on this.
There's no change. I'll make a motion to pass 2019 OR 34 on the third and final.
Is there a second? All right, we have a motion second to go ahead and pass 2019 OR 34 on the third and final reading. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed?
Thank you.
Passes. Next up, Mr. Merkley. Ordinance nullifying ordinance 2019 OR 12.
And this was briefly discussed at the last meeting, but you have in front of you an ordinance to nullify a prior ordinance to rezone property. That prior ordinance was number 2019 OR 12, and this is being done pursuant to Indiana Code 36-7-4-610.5. Attached to the ordinance is various minutes from both city council meetings and planning commission meetings in reference to the property that previously had been rezoned, which is commonly known as the Optimus Club. Was rezoned back in April 1 of this year by the city council upon a favorable recommendation from the planning commission to rezone that property, which is also described in the ordinance as well, from residential to multifamily. Pursuant to the statute that I just stated, if the city council determines, you as the legislative body, that the zoning proposal that is in reference to this property was adopted as a result of an intentional misrepresentation or omission of material facts, you as the legislative body may by a 3/4 vote adopt an ordinance to nullify any change in the zone maps that resulted from the misrepresentation or omission. Again, there has been lengthy discussion since April 1st of 2019, both before the Planning Commission and the City Council, which is substantiated in the minutes from residents around the affected property that despite the assurances to the council and to the Planning Commission by the applicant at that time that they were made aware of the proposal to rezone the property, what it would be used for. Again, the individuals testified and spoke under oath in public hearings before the Planning Commission, and also spoke here that they felt that they were misled or certain material facts were omitted at that time. So if the council feels that as a result of that, that the council was misrepresented, if they can adopt this ordinance pursuant to the state statute, again, it would take a 3/4 vote. I know we have rezoned the property back, but I think this cleans up. I think it makes a stronger position for the city as to why the original rezoning did occur if you do adopt this. Again, it's a 3/4 vote. If my arithmetic is right, that means 7 of the 9.
Sir, you have to remove it from the table first before you make a motion to approve.
All right, is there an ordinance number?
35.
Is there, just out of tradition for public comment, when an item comes up and it's related to the item that's on the agenda, we give those folks the 3 minutes to speak. So I don't know if there's anybody who's signed up for their 3 minutes regarding this issue.
Not specifically that, but to rezone.
I didn't.
You did? Okay. I figured when you stood up that that may be the case. So
I want to make it perfectly clear that under this ordinance, there's no requirement for a public hearing.
yeah, I understand. There's not going to be a public hearing, but we are going to respect our tradition as far as public comment, unless legal tells me otherwise.
Which you all can choose to do that.
Okay. So with that, if there's anyone signed up on that, on the sign-up sheet, you'll have 3 minutes for public comment. Mr. Merkley, I don't have the sheet in front of me, so is there anybody here there signed up?
They all say rezoning, so I mean, unless they're here to speak on ordinance number 2019 or 12.
There's only one person, there's two people who raised their hand. Can you give me your names, just to make sure you're on the list?
John Kraft.
Okay.
Ryan Mitchell.
We need to remove it from the table.
Okay. All right. So there are two people? Okay. So, I'm being told I should remove it from being tabled first, so with that, a motion second to remove it from being tabled so that the action can be taken. Any other discussion? Okay, so we have a motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, it's no longer tabled. It's an active item. And with that, I guess, Mr. Kraft, you have 3 minutes. Mr. Merkley.
I have the clock right here.
Thank you.
For the record, John Kraft with the law firm of Young, Linden, and Kraft, 126 West Spring Street, New Albany, Indiana, appearing on behalf of BWI with regards to this issue. I know at the last meeting, Mr. White may have raised the issue, well, why didn't they appear to address the issue of the rezoning and taking it back to a residential zone? Part of that had to deal with issues with the mayor's office. Short and simple, there was the communications from the mayor that if we would let this go back to residential and move to the Jesse Ballou site, which you will see as items 15 and 16, that at that particular point in time, it would go back to residential zoning. That did not occur, and we do have communications directly from the mayor advising that everything was worked out as long as they moved to the Jesse Ballou site. At that point in time, there would be no opposition to the Jesse Ballou site, and likewise there would be no opposition by my client to this issue. That did not turn out to be the case, as Mr. Ellis would probably tell you. He was at the last Plan Commission meeting as to the Jesse Ballou site. I think it's important to note that you understand you're voting on an item that you're saying there were intentional misrepresentations. Keep that in mind. This isn't a matter of anything other than you're alleging fraud. And if that's what you choose to do by virtue of this, keep in mind the rezoning request to zone it back was not originated by you. Indiana Code 3674-610.5 requires that the the council generate that. This has not come to you as a result of a self-generated request. This has come to you by virtue of the Plan Commission asking you to take it back only after the mayor filed his own application petition, which we opposed, and as a result of opposition to that, then, magic as it tends to be, the Plan Commission then brought up its zoning ordinance and trying to take it back. There's a lot of things that have to be addressed by this, and I would just remind you that 3674-610.5, you are alleging intentional misrepresentations and intentional omissions of material fact. Keep that in mind as you make that decision, because ultimately this doesn't come to you from a self-generated ordinance. It comes to you from the Plan Commission only after the mayor's application was deemed not to be proper under the terms of Indiana Code and the rezoning. I will address the issues of 15 and 16 at the point in time that they come up, but I do believe that think very carefully before you vote on this, because it was not generated by you. It was generated by the Plan Commission. I would ask that you deny this request, because keeping in mind you're indicating there were intentional misrepresentations. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe there's another gentleman. Your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Ryan Mitchell, 5902 East 34th Street, Indianapolis. I'm a vice president at BWI Development. Got to know a lot of you over the last year, and I appreciate the time that you guys have given me just trying to help me understand this process and try to figure out a pathway and a home for this project. our company has never worked harder or allocated more resources to find a home for a project of any kind. We do a lot of these, and we've tried. We've done everything we know to do. We've done everything locally that was asked of us, plus some. And that's really the heart of where this project is now. There's not a lot of fight left, I would say. We're probably to the place now where this is a project that legitimately is to help the most vulnerable people in the community. And we're hoping that, that the community doesn't say we don't care, because we're in the ninth inning here, and we hope that's not the case. But that's what this project's about. There is no project that helps more vulnerable people than this project. There's less representation in this part of the state for this type of housing than anywhere in the state. And there's been some kind of rough, slanderous comments about our company during this process, and it's been frustrating. On different projects that we work on, there's some of that comes across, but these are not the kind of projects that we usually feel those kind of intentional blows, because they are legitimate community projects. So that's been hard at times for us, because we take a lot of pride in what we do, and we think we do it pretty well. And I think really, I only have really one question. I think that it's never been very well explained to me. Originally, as he mentioned, this was brought through an improper process to try to get an application that was rezoned, and then that was amended. And then, publicly on the media and throughout, they said, okay, well, the reason we're asking for this misrepresentation is because the city made a mistake and the proper notice didn't go out, and that's the reason why, which would make sense. But then in some communication, we found out that's not the case either. Proper zoning went out, all notices went out, and now we're here in this misrepresentation, which is, it's a very slippery slope, and it's a very difficult standard. And I think it would be great if I could go back to my company and my team, and I could say, you know what, at least I understand what the misrepresentation is. The misrepresentation. So what I would ask of this committee is just help me understand, because you all voted for this, exception of Councilman Paris, and I really would like to understand what the exact information is that we stated that really carried the vote, and all of a sudden that information was either untrue, or because it can't be that something changed after the fact, right? It's that we just said something that just was point blank not true. And I would really like to understand what those actual facts are. Thank you for your time. Great.
Well, first of all, it doesn't matter who generated the zoning proposal under the statute that is a result of the ordinance that's in front of you to nullify the prior rezoning of this property. But it was generated by BWI Incorporated. If you look at your exhibits, which are attached to the ordinance, specifically 2019 OR 12, which is the ordinance that you're being asked to nullify, under Exhibit A, in the first paragraph, whereas BWI Investments LLC filed a petition before the Planning Commission to change the zoning map at 61 Louise Street. I don't have more clear it be. I don't quite see how the city was the petitioner there when it clearly says it was BWI. Keep in mind that it is your decision within your as the city council, as legislative body, to determine whether or not a material misrepresentation or omission of material facts was intentionally made by the applicant. Keep in mind, no evidence or testimony to the contrary has been presented here by BWI to contradict that or anything to challenge that. I would point again to Exhibit B, This will be Exhibit B to the ordinance, the minutes from the Planning Commission for March 26, 2019. If you go down to under new business, on page 2, Rob Burgess. This was all stated under oath. We can prepare transcripts if that's what we need to do. Testified there at the hearing before the Planning Commission as a result of the Planning Commission making the favorable recommendation to this council to rezone this property. The BWI commissioned him to canvass the neighborhood. There were 122 households, that he contacted 68%. 77 of the 68% gave feedback. The feedback was either neutral or positive for the development. And then if you continue on to the exhibits, into the subsequent meetings, Exhibit D, which was a city council meeting on May 6, 2019, and if you go to public comments, there are at least a dozen individuals from the neighborhood stating that they were not contacted by anyone from BWI. Keep in mind that BWI's representative stated that he contacted 68% of those individuals. If you go further, Exhibit E, minutes from the Planning Commission of May 29th or 28th, 2019. Again, at least a dozen individuals from the area surrounding the Optimist Club. Again, many of them stating that they had not been contacted, that they were not aware of the specifics on the property was being rezoned. The city has never alleged that the notifications did not go out. The notifications did go out. We only had one come back that was not served. What we're alleging is that BWI, through its representative, came before the Planning Commission, and as a result of that, that's how this started, to go to you. And when that representative said that he contacted individuals surrounding the Optimist Club as to this development, stated what this development was, what it was going to be, he told the Planning Commission that 68% of those 78%, it was 78% of those people that were contacted were in favor of this development. We have yet to hear one person come forward that had been contacted by that representative saying that that's what they told him. On the contrary, we have individuals, many individuals, who said they were not contacted or they were told something completely different by the individual that BWI retained. So it is your determination, it's within your prerogative, based on what is in front of you, to determine whether or not there was an intentional misrepresentation or omission of the material facts that led to the favorable recommendation to the City Council of 2019 OR 12 and the subsequent adoption by the City Council to rezone that property. I can answer any questions.
I have a question for our attorney.
Absolutely.
Or less of you. Same, I had a Indiana code rattled off to me. I thought I saw you over typing, but I think sometimes when Indiana codes don't out the numbers, there's some things that are criminal and some are not. The criminal code tends to be in the 35 section, correct?
You're all
Mr. Wilder, and this is in 36.
This is in the zoning.
Zoning, okay. So just to air out that, it's not a criminal code.
Mr. Maples, I'm not so sure why the criminal code is so close to the government municipal code as well.
But,
You know, and I will point out, you know, there's even case law on this in Ogden versus Premier, which the Indiana Court of Appeals stated that this statute grants a governing body the ability to reverse any approval of an ordinance if it subsequently learns in this situation, that a developer misrepresented or omitted facts to it. And the issue in that case is that the developer, it was not an issue. The issue was they did not state misrepresentations in writing, but they were verbally. And the court stated the statute does not distinguish between verbal and written representations made to the governing body. So the courts have recognized this statute.
And Russ, didn't we have multiple meetings with multiple public comment where we had packed room in this very same room where one after another spoke for the record that there was misrepresentation?
And all the minutes are attached to the ordinance, except we do not have the minutes from the last council meeting.
The multiple meetings on different occasions with, okay, I just wanted to let the ones that are
Just
here
to kind
today.
of put on the record, I was at the meeting, I believe all of us were. There was also people that were advised, maybe unintentionally now, that if you have the same message and to help speed things along, if your message has already been stated by another person with public comment, we've heard that, and there was multiple people that I believe speak.
And they raised their hand.
I know you said 12 guaranteed, but we always preface that with when we have a room of people, you know,
So don't repeat the same message.
Yes. Not that it's now, but at this point it kind of maybe shows that maybe we do need to hear some of it. But there was people that potentially did not speak because that message was over and over and over again.
And I especially do recall, I don't remember what her last name is, but her first name was Gina. She came up to the podium, and I think the rest of y'all recall that too, because she named my name. They pointed out they were furious because it was listed in the paper where I said I supported it because the neighborhood supported it. And boy, they let us know that they did not support it. I wanted to bring it because I was named out, and I can't remember what her last name, but I know that's in the record. Her first name was Gina. And I also, just when I went in between meetings to go to the restroom, I had a whole room full out there. I don't know how many, I stopped counting after 30. They said the same thing to me, you don't represent us, we do not. But, you know, they were so upset because I said that. They wanted the record to show that that was not true.
And I assume, as other zoning ordinances, it's a one and done, it's not a
Yes.
three? Okay.
Also keep in mind that when the notices go out for a rezoning matter, the person gets an envelope. They open it up and it says the property at 123 ABC Street is up for a rezoning to zone from residential to multifamily. That notification does not say what the project's going to be, what the development's going to be. So just because someone would have opened a letter from the city council or from the city in reference to a rezoning, all it does is notify them, A, of the hearing, the public hearing, and that there was a rezoning pending. There's no specifics.
Motion to approve 19 OR 35.
Second. Have a motion and a second to pass 2019 OR 35. Any other discussion?
I have a question, Mr. Kraft. Are you, if the zoning stayed the same, are you trying to locate this at the Options Club site?
Are you talking about Louise Street?
Yes.
Louise Street, if it stays as to what it was when it was rezoned to M3, then it would still be at that location for BWI. But again, due to communications from the mayor's office asking us to move to the Ballou property and the support of the mayor, both from a standpoint of a desire to have it moved and financial issues with regards to the move to Ballou, we would much rather be at Louise Street. It was the proper place. And the issue as it relates to notice, and perhaps the city should look at its own ordinance as it relates to notices that go out. Because if you're giving notices that are not giving individuals, because there is a requirement under your ordinance, notices go out. It is the city plan commission office that sends those notices out. The majority of people that got up and spoke said they didn't get a notice and they were an adjoiner. So from that standpoint, and there's an email directly from Ms. Woosley to indicate that she sent those out. Not only did she send those out, but she also responded to that. So in answer to your question, Mr. White, we would much rather be at the Louise Street property. Thank you.
And Mr. Wilder.
Well, before you vote, I probably ought to say something. So what I would say is this: as your attorney, I would suggest that the executive has expressed that they believe that they have the ability to prove whatever the facts are that need to be proven to support the ordinance that they presented to you. And Mr. Kraft made a comment, and the young man from Indianapolis also alluded to the emphasis on misrepresentation, and you must prove these things and the slippery slopes and things. What I'm going to tell you is they have far greater resources than we do, and they've done a different type of work to determine that they believe that they can support and defend their case. And I've won a lot of arguments where there wasn't some gentleman or lady in a black robe to tell me I was right or wrong, and we can, as lawyers, all stand here and win every argument we make, and ultimately, Mr. White agrees, but ultimately, if in fact the executive believes that they can support the position that they've asked you to take, then it would behoove me to suggest that based upon what they believe that they've asked you to do something legal, defensible, and in the best interest of your community. So I'll offer nothing as it relates to your choice as a decision, but just that I'm going to rely on my colleague and his client's ability to believe that they can provide you with the tools to defend your vote if you choose to do what they've asked.
Thank you, Mr. Wilder. Any other discussion or questions from the council? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? It's unanimous. Pass the, what is it, 7 out of 9?
It was, yes.
Yeah, unanimous. So,
0.75.
all right.
We round up.
Next item, item number 11, Nathan Samuel. I guess we'd have to first motion to table or motion to remove from the table.
Second.
We have a motion second to remove from table item number 11. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Mr. Samuel.
Yeah. This is an ordinance that was already in the packet. We received another email this morning from our attorney with a little bit different than this. I'd like to move this one forward, and if we need to move any from the email we got this morning, any of the language to this ordinance, then we can discuss that at another time. Basically, what this does is it takes 2% of edit dollars and puts it in a non-reverting fund, which we will need to set up. And it allows for 2 different opportunities through the year to have 501c3 not-for-profits submit their requests on how to use some funding that we have that is put in there for this purpose. And it's specifically for dealing with the needs and services for the homeless in Jeffersonville. And the attachment A is in there. It's real basic, easy to fill out. But the intent is that an entity, a 501c3, would, if they have a program or a project or something that will directly meet the needs of the homeless in Jeffersonville, they would fill this out, give it to the council, and if the council wishes to vote on that, they will. If they don't approve it, then they won't. It'll be up to the council. I know there is one comment about maybe we should wait and let next year's council address this. I understand that, where that's coming from, and appreciate that. But I guess I would say that this council has, basically 4 complete months left, and if there's certainly dealing with the homeless situation right now, it's a big deal. And if we don't address it, then we're not meeting the needs of our constituents and our community. And if the next year's council wants to change it, they could change it. But that's just a comment I'd make. So I'm just going to make a motion to approve this on the first reading, so we could continue to seek input and feedback from the council on if we need to modify it or not.
I'll second.
What's the ordinance number?
What is it again? I'm sorry.
36.
So we have a motion and a second to pass 2019 OR 36 on the first reading.
On the first.
Yep, on the first reading. Any other discussion?
Yes, I'd like to, I know you sent some information, you talked about it, just so the public knows, what would be the approximate of that 2%?
It's around $50,000.
Okay.
It's tied to edit, the revenue from edit, but approximately $50,000.
I went back and forth on this, and as it stands now, I'm going to vote no.
I will be also. I don't think we should be appropriating money every year without knowing what the cause is, just to say that we're appropriating money. I think this issue needs more than just a written check, once a year or twice a year. I think that the homeless coalition that we support every year with a large donation is probably the best vehicle to coordinate those efforts.
One issue, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
One issue that I was like Scotty, I'm kind of like torn a couple different directions, but one of the issues I had is when we give like the homeless coalition that money, now they can budget and they know what they're doing with the money and they go on. If we're going to set up a situation in which you get competing entities, I'm concerned that like, how are they supposed? They don't know when, you know what I'm saying? So I was going to tell you that I was going to, and because I think you're in the right place and we're doing this for the right reason, I was going to vote yes for the first reading, but I would say that like I'm currently a no. But I think we could talk about it more and we could kind of kick it around and maybe we could talk about some ideas. But I kind of like what Matt said too. I'm a no on it, but I'll be more than happy to talk about more. And I'm even willing to vote yes to get it on one reading, just so we can kind of keep talking about it. But I see some problems in setting it up the way we're setting it up.
Let me finish, I'm sorry. Nathan, isn't this kind of on the line in the intent where we had last meeting where they came and we granted money because we had the situation with that motel closing down and we had the explosion. Isn't this more the intent for situations like that, for the need to address, find people a home, the homeless, to support that?
It certainly could be used by setting it up this way for an emergency use, as long as it deals with direct services for the homeless. I'm just coming to you, Scott. The dollars that goes to the coalition, that is admin dollars. That pays for that does not go for services. And I think it's very important to have them to help coordinate services. But this specifically says it cannot go to admin, so it has to go to a direct need that we see in our community.
So that's a little bit of a difference. But
The homeless coalition that we appropriate that money for is set up by the city. It's my understanding. I think that was done before I became a council member. And it would probably be more appropriate for them to coordinate these types of activities. Then if they feel a need to set up a non-reverting fund and to have these calls for proposals that would go through them, then I think that would be appropriate since we are the ones that set up the homeless coalition. But I was the one that sent the email that Mr. Samuel referred to regarding committing future councils. I don't think it would be appropriate to try to commit future councils to funding something. I think it has been said a number of times that each council budgets each year what it thinks it should budget and appropriate. If the amount is $50,000 and if I understand this correctly, the first city council meeting of May and September, the city council will review the attachment. And that's something we can set up now through the homeless coalition. We have $404,969,000 surplus in edit. We could work with the homeless coalition and allocate 25 or even 50 and have a call for proposal this fall. I think that would be more appropriate, and if the next council chooses to fund it further, then we could do that. Or when we get to budget session, we can even put in the budget for next year.
I wouldn't be opposed to putting something in the budget for the homeless coalition to use towards programming or towards direct service, but I just don't think that voting for this to tie the percentage of edit to increase every time edit increases, or decrease even every time that edit could decrease, in perpetuity is the right way to go forward. So, I mean, I don't disagree. We should keep going with the conversation and decide how we can act more appropriately or in the best interest of the community. I just don't agree with this approach for this specific purpose. When we have emergency situations like we did here recently with the events in Clarksville, we have the capacity to act without doing this. We've proven that multiple times. So, not opposed to the conversation, just opposed to this approach.
Any other comments? I'd like to add a couple of comments. The Homeless Coalition, I believe, was established from a number of different entities coming together to try to come up with a plan and some leadership to help with the homeless situation. It wasn't really established by the city itself as far as my understanding, my history. And then we've never committed to the whole Homeless Coalition, I don't believe, to fund it every year. In fact, when I first came, I think it was supposed to be a one-time, and they keep coming back, which is fine. And this council thinks it's a worthy cause, and we have the funds to do it, and we go ahead and pay towards the Homeless Coalition. We added the YMCA to the budget. We thought that was a worthy use of money, this council, in its wisdom. And we've set up the Arts Committee the same way, with using edit, because at that time, that council, in its wisdom, thought that was a good idea to perpetuate the funding for arts. So this council is at the same kind of crossroads that we could decide to fund an ongoing need in it, and if we believe that that's a good idea, that's great, and we could fund it. And then the next council can come back and say, we don't think that's a good use of money, and not have it happen. So it seems like over the years I find that sometimes the council thinks it's a worthy idea to go ahead and start the process of funding something in perpetuity, or sometimes it says, let's not it's not important enough to go ahead and put in the budget. It's not important enough to go ahead to reoccur the funding. But at the end of the day, everybody that spoke here is exactly right in that the next council could stop it, reduce it, or increase the amount. But at this point, just myself, I do support the concept. It seems like every year there is a need for homeless funding, or there is definitely a need, so this is a way to address it. So I'm going to at least support it, at least on the first reading, much like Mr. Hawkins, but I'm probably a little stronger yes than he. So I want to say my piece. I don't know if anyone else wants to speak before.
There was one more thing. The homeless coalition that we support now, their office is in New Albany. So under this proposal, they would not qualify to apply for these funds. And they're supposed to be coordinating the resources in all of southern Indiana. So, I mean, that's just another issue with this in particular. It has to be an organization that is in Clark County, and they are not. Technically, they don't have a physical address in Clark County. And so there are some other issues other than the principle of the matter. But
so it is my understanding, obviously it's wrong or incorrect, that the homeless coalition started out of a study that was initiated by the mayor before this council.
I think that's what got the ball rolling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was to coordinate all of
Right.
southern Indiana. Okay.
Right.
And I know we did money for the YMCA. That was this year, correct? But it was a different approach. It was a set amount. I think that's what, I don't think anybody up here that's going to vote no is trying not to help the homeless. I think it's the approach of a guaranteed 2% every year will be going into this fund, whereas a single dollar, that's why I think maybe, like you said, you're going to vote yes with anticipation of maybe, having more discussion on it. But there is a difference on that and the principles of that, and then also being said that the idea that a new council could come in and change it, we could potentially have 8 new members on this council next year, and trying to figure that out in first year, second year, or third year is virtually impossible. That's just my 2 cents. There's a gigantic learning curve to becoming on a council and learning the finances. Hence why you guys made fun of me for not talking the first 2 years. My no vote will continue to be no on the 2%, for a reasonable amount of time, or until somebody decides to change it based on that alone, not the need.
Let me just respond briefly about the YMCA. The reason I brought the YMCA up is because what I find as councils come and go, when they see something as a line item on a budget, they assume that there shouldn't be numbers that go there, so it seems to continue. That's the only reason.
Yeah,
it is different, I agree, but it's...
And I just want to restate, I'm for appropriating $50,000 now for this year for the cause, and considering an appropriation for during our budget negotiations for the 2020 budget.
Just a comment. One of the things that disturbs me is once we appropriate money, whether we do it this way or any other way, once we turn money over to any organization that deals with the homeless, we have no control as to what they do with it. We can ask for records to be given or whatever, but once that money is gone away from the hands of the council, then we have no control as to what they do with it. I know that you say it's not for administrative purposes, but administrative purposes can be disguised. They can disguise it and use it for whatever way they want to do it. So I think that for me to support this ordinance, we would have to have some future workshops. We'd have to have some scheduled workshops so that we could sit down in a scheduled workshop and go over this ordinance and
bring it up to something that we could all agree with. As it is right now, I don't think we're going to agree with this.
Yes?
I'll just comment that, the homeless, this ordinance does not say that the entity has to be in Clark County or even in Jeffersonville. This ordinance that's in front of you, the one this morning did.
The one that came in at 6:30 this morning?
That one did. That's not what we're.
That's not the one we're, okay, then I don't even know which one we're talking about.
This is the one that's in the packet.
Yeah, the one that's in the packet is the one we're considering.
But this does say, funds can only be used for needs and services provided in Jeffersonville. So the commission or wherever could be in New Albany, but the services have to be proven in Jeff. And I would just say, I respect everybody's take, and you have to make your own decision. But obviously, what we've been doing hasn't worked, and I don't like to just always react. And the homeless issue is going to be an ongoing issue for the council, for the city in general, and it needs to be tweaked. It needs to address. We would put this in the budget at budget time, but a dollar amount, that would be the intent. But if I've been on the council for 12 years now, it's amazing how you go from one budget to the next budget and something can drop off because you're dealing with so many line items, so many big numbers, that it was unintentional to drop off. And I just think homelessness and this focus is, it's a priority. It should be a priority. And if so, if we do something like this, then we should, then maybe this will not allow it to drop off as easily. And I would just say that, this has been talked about for over 6 weeks, and I've been contacted, or I've talked to maybe 2 or 3 council members about it. And I certainly appreciate everybody's right to have their opinion and all, but a lot of this, we could have already dealt with some of this stuff if we would have communicated even more earlier. I would be certainly willing to have workshops. I'd be certainly willing to hammer stuff out with people. If other folks would rather have, instead of a percentage, a dollar amount in there, if that sways the needle for them, I'll do that. Or if it gets voted down, that's fine too. It's just an effort to try to address the problem that I think we all see. And I'll leave it at that.
Any other discussion? Yes, Mr. Ralph.
So first, I owe a huge apology to Mr. Samuel for not doing a better job of getting the information you requested together in the form of the ordinance. Second, it was earlier than 6:30 that I did that this morning to sit to you all. Because I got up earlier.
5:09, I believe.
5:09.
I saw it at 6:30.
5:09. But with all that said, so there's a couple things that I think are important. First and foremost, I can say this in a little more definitive way than what Mr. Maples has said, and how Mr. Hawkins has said it, and what Mr. Zastani has said. You cannot budget, you cannot force another council to budget or put money or do something the following year. You can't create legislation in perpetuity. So that is fundamentally forever and ever and ever. You can't really make these ordinances say every year 2% of anything must go here. Because in fact, you cannot bind the next council, which will be different, to do something by your ordinance today. Because if you had the power to do that, then way back in 18 whatever, when Jeffersonville became the city, then somebody could have put together an ordinance that you all would have been bound to follow if that wasn't the law. So this concept, and I asked Mr. Merkley if there are other ordinances to his knowledge where
you feel compelled based on ordinance to put certain percentages of your edit into the fund, you really can't do that. Because in 2020, I may not be here, and there will be several of you that have chosen not to be here, so you can't make those people do what you mandate today. So that's the beginning point. The 509 document, brag about being up early working. I took what Mr. Samuel has said and kind of tried to develop it in a way that A, doesn't violate the law of mandating the next council put money in something, and recognizing you can do what you want with your money so long as you have the ability and budget time to get the votes. And then secondly, I put some language in there about Jeffersonville entities and kind of some of the conversations that Mr. Samuel and I had. So that's what that second document is. So you can look at both of those and come up with some hybrid or no grid or whatever. But first, I apologize to Mr. Samuel for not doing something in a more timely manner, and secondarily, I want you to understand that whatever you do can be undone very easily because the next council can vote by majority to rescind. Thank you.
Or is it just void?
Void
That you're,
or choose not even to fund.
you're not, are you obligated?
No. I don't believe that there's any way that
It's not enforceable.
Correct. That's the existence of this ordinance is not enforceable.
This,
Or any ordinance that mandates.
well, a little bit of clarification. So, as you presented it here, it says, in there it says, will be transferred, 2% based on the previous year's rule, will be transferred. Now, unless somebody raises a question about this next year, what you're saying is that this isn't, we can't do this legally.
I don't believe that this council can bind the next council to budget money like this. No. There's
As I
a
read
very
it,
number of things.
I know it doesn't say shall.
I know there's a difference.
We know the importance of the word shall.
May.
Yeah, and may.
Should.
But this says will, which is
Well,
almost just like shall.
So unless, I think the question is then, if the next council doesn't question it, does the money go there?
Yes.
Is that what, I mean, that's what we're getting to.
I think, so candidly,
They would have to take action in a meeting to move the money.
I think they'd have to do it during the budget session. And
Have to
strike-
transfer it or transfer it back?
The request is for a non-reverting fund to be created, and I think that there has to be action to put the money in the non-reverting fund. And you would not be in violation of your ordinance or the law if the next council says, no, we're not going to do that. I mean, that's.
Well, we would be in violation of the ordinance, and it would be up to us.
I think it's.
But the ordinance is
I
void
think
on
it's
space.
It's avoidable on space. I just don't think that that's. I think you can create it.
This is not a basic law class. This feels like
Moving on. I think we've gone round and round this. We have a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and vote on it.
Mr. Wilder, it was June 1839.
June 1839. So there is no ordinance that requires that they do anything in June. We have a motion and a second on 2019 OR 36 on the first reading. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Aye. Have roll call vote, I guess. Please.
Yeah, just a second. Let me shoot out. Councilperson White.
No.
Councilperson Paris.
Yes.
Councilperson Maples.
No.
Councilperson Gill.
Aye.
Councilperson Hawkins.
Aye.
Councilperson President Stobney.
Yes.
Councilperson Owen.
No.
Councilperson Ellis.
Yes.
Councilperson Samuel.
So passed on the first reading, and we'll be back to revisit. All right, next up, item number 12. Mr. Ellis, it's the Dolly Parton Imagination Library.
Yes, I believe John Ashton is here. He came before us the previous meeting talking about the Dolly Parton Library and the books for the children, and he's to bring us some information back about how many children that we're looking at serving, I believe.
Thank you all for having me back. I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak to you again. Last time I was here, we talked about the Dolly Parton Imagination Library and what we would take to get started in Jeffersonville, Indiana. There was some concern about the exact number of eligible people in Jeffersonville specifically, and ways that we could keep any funds that would be donated to start up this program in Jeffersonville. The city of Jeffersonville itself has a population of eligible children 5 and under of 3,154. The average Dolly Parton Imagination Library has a 60% enrollment rate after 5 years. That would put us at $1,892 for our total enrollment after 5 years. At $25 a kid, we're estimating this program will eventually cost us $47,300 a year to run for Jeffersonville. But if you break that down, enrolling about 20% of that population each year, by their conservative estimates, we should be enrolling about 378 the first year, which would be $9,450 for our first year cost. Since Community Action of Southern Indiana is the 501c3 that's the fiscal agent for this program, they actually have the opportunity to help us enroll more people faster. So we anticipate outpacing that 378 enrolled in the first year. We currently have 250 Head Start enrollees in Jeffersonville, and we would look at getting those signed up right away. We also have a waiting list of 400 people that have signed up for more information just in Jeffersonville, which would put us at 650 people if they all were eligible and signed up, for a cost of $16,250 for the first year if we signed them all up on day one, which that wouldn't happen. It would take some ramping up. So between $9,500 and $16,000 for year one for our first year cost. And like I said, that is going off of their conservative estimates. That is only enrolling people in Jeffersonville. So these numbers are based on the 47130 and 131 zip codes. Children are added on an individual basis by address. So if we have the addresses that are 47111 that are Jeffersonville, they would still get rolled in and counted and approved to be receiving the books.
What was the number for Head Start that you said would be?
250. I kind of jumped into it. Anybody have any questions about the program itself or need a refresher on how the program works and what it does?
Has there been any discussion on where we can pull funds from?
We talked about that at the last meeting.
Yeah.
Heather?
You would have to do an additional appropriation because there's nothing that's already budgeted that's in your budget right now. So it would just be a decision on where you would want to appropriate that and how much. You have about $18,000 in your special projects left in the general fund.
Mr. Ashton?
Yes.
If I could, you probably heard the discussion of the item prior to you.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Okay. So as you know, we can only commit to this year.
A one-time thing, and I'll come back next year and ask for more. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
I'll make sure you understand that at least.
Yep.
Right.
And when are you wanting to start this?
They ask that we have the first year and a half to 2 years of funding in place before we start the program. I had initially asked the city for $20,000. That would give us enough that we could start the program this fall. We've got a handful of grant applications that are outstanding right now seeking additional funds, and we would just start in Jeffersonville. Ideally, my hope would be that the city of Jeffersonville would take the lead on this, and as as soon as you all make a commitment, we would have other organizations and entities fall in line, have a launch event on TV, that type of a thing, to spread the word and start fundraising from a small donation pool.
So you said $9,500 to what?
For the first year is their
16?
estimate to 16,000. Yeah, if we knock it out of the park.
So would 10,000 or be a good number to start? I'm just,
Do you have any funding whatsoever at this point, or are we the first?
This would be the first entity, and that's why the program would start just in Jeffersonville and not countywide.
So you're looking at 9,450, and then another half of that, which would be approximately 4,700.
Yeah.
So we're talking about maybe $13,000. And
You have about 18,000
in special projects. I would like to make a motion to approve taking $13,000 out of special projects for this imagination library.
Okay, so, excuse me.
Yep.
For not knowing, but for the Imagination Library, so the 13,000, let's say we give you the $13,000, that's going to...
It's going to children in Jeffersonville. The Dolly Parton Imagination Library, it's not like a regular library like we've got down the street. It is a book gifting program where if you enroll your child from age 0 to 5, they receive one book a month. These books are selected by a blue ribbon panel of experts and child educators and publishers. The books are mailed directly to the home in the name of the child. So the child gets that book to be able to learn how to read. There are instructions in the book, helping to educate parents as to how to read to your children.
So there is no inventory.
No inventory, no stock.
There isn't like a stock. It's going direct to the people that are going to be using the product.
Absolutely, yes. It will come from Pigeon Forge to the Jeffersonville post office and then out to the communities.
and we write the check to Cassie? Is that
To
what-
Community Action Southern Indiana, yes, sir.
Okay.
So if a future council were to stop this, what would happen is they would just stop, the people that had signed up that had been receiving these books at no cost to them would just stop receiving those books.
Well, we will anticipate having funding from other sources moving forward down the road. We're working on a couple of different initiatives to secure funding. So this is just to get us up and running. If the program was already up and going, what I would be coming here and asking for is to cover a percentage of the enrolled population of Jeffersonville, because a year from now I'll be able to come back and say, we actually only have 1,000 kids signed up. Would you cover half of that cost, or what have you? On an ongoing basis would be our ask, probably.
Well, it's a moving target.
Yep.
You're saying the initial startup is 13,000. Do you have any idea of how much of that number is part of the initial, and what will the number possibly be? Or can you identify any of those funds as being solely associated with the initial startup?
That's why we would just keep it in Jeffersonville only right now for the program until we had enough funding to add a zip code at a time for the rest of the zip codes across the county. But the funding that this council would donate would go solely to folks in Jeffersonville.
So if you hit your numbers 100% correct,
Yeah.
which is not,
Sure.
impossible, the number next year would be 13,000 again? If we are the sole people that are funding it.
No, I think you said it would grow because you get to 60% of the eligible.
Of the eligible population, yeah. So,
So when it maxes out, it'd be 42,000. The number you gave us,
47, yeah.
I'm sorry, 47,200.
And that's, probably 4
So
years
after
down the
5
road.
years, he says it'll get to 47,200.
But you're going to other sources.
We are going to other sources and doing other funding.
So they're going to cover
Once the program goes live and we are able to enroll children into the program, we'll be able to do events like at Steamboat Days or what have you, where we're hitting up for small dollar donations in addition to signing kids up for the program. It's just difficult for us to go door to door or asking for handouts when we don't have a program up and running yet. So that's what I'm trying to do, is get the program functional, at least in this city first.
There was a motion, but I didn't hear a second.
Second.
We have a motion second, and the amount was $13,000,
Yeah,
and it's come from special projects. Any other discussion? The only thing I would say is that we'd ask for you to come back.
Absolutely.
Maybe by the end of the year.
Sure.
And get us a update on the progress of, how it's going.
How it's going, and
signed up.
we're getting signed up.
You're
Absolutely.
hitting your numbers and what you expect.
I can do that. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
thank you, Judge.
Thank you.
We should be a quick email to say,
Good details,
yeah.
Absolutely. No problem.
Yeah,
Thank you all.
and I can use that as
Yeah, thanks.
Next up is item 13, a resolution of support for the VFM Safety and Inspiration Center. I think Lisa Gill.
Yeah, you got Kurt Peters here. I think there's been a lot of emails going back and forth, so you're going to have to start at square one and say who you talked to, because I was under the assumption you talked to everybody, and then we got an email from for Rob Ways, not Ron, but from Rob Ways saying that for the city to support, they wanted you to move from the current location, move everything under one. So I'm just going to turn it over to you and just let you.
Can I ask you, I know you haven't even had a chance to explain anything, but is this a time-sensitive issue?
It is.
Okay, because I know with the emails and everything, okay.
Yeah.
Go
So
ahead.
my name is Curtis Peters, 1605 Haddon Court, New Albany, Indiana, and I have the privilege of being the board chair of the Vintage Fire Museum. We've been in Jeffersonville now a little over 5 years, and it has worked out very well. We are also very pleased to be involved with the Art and Culture District, and our relationship with the people involved with that, like Dawn Spiker and so forth, have been very good. So what has happened is that something very positive, in my perspective, for Jeffersonville, and has happened. It's not going to cost the city of Jeffersonville any money. The Vintage Fire Museum and Safety Education Center really has three purposes. One is the preservation and then the telling of the story of firefighting, which is a very inspiring story in its own right. Secondly, to offer fire safety for children and adults, fire safety education. And thirdly, to inspire. We like to use the example of what firefighters have done and still do as an inspiration for the community. So we do things like having the 9/11 Memorial every year. We just had a very successful special program on women in the fire service and the like. We really like the building that we're in. It has served us well, but on the second and third of our priority missions, we are a little short on space. And so there is a piece of property that has become available. It's been available actually for approximately a year and a half. And that is a Bales property piece on 7th Street. Now, there was some confusion about which building it's involved, and the answer is that it involves the one that is between 7th and Federal, and behind that new biscuit place or whatever is being developed there on Spring Street, and it continues to Wall. So it does not involve any property on Spring Street. The building itself is in very bad condition. It's an eyesore. There are environmental issues. We are exploring those right now. We've done a phase 2 on it already, and so there are considerable problems, far more than with the building that we're in now. Far more than with the building we're in now. Nevertheless, we're willing to undergo a capital campaign to take care of the environmental problems and to develop that into a beautiful site. And we have the students at Purdue University have done some renderings of what the exterior might look like. This is the exterior on Federal, and this is where exit 0 was, and then there's some other bays that were not used. The north side, the idea that the students had was to tie it in with the beauty of the Arts and Culture District, and also make it very kids-friendly because it is going to feature safety education for children. And so the north side on 7th Street would look like this. Then there's another drawing showing the parking lot on the east end by Wall, which is in terrible condition now too. It would be fixed up beautifully with some landscaping, and that in that area there would also be a memorial garden with meditation space and so forth. So it's really, the idea is to do something beautiful in that area that is clearly an eyesore right now, and to do it with the well-being of the people of the community in mind and the like. So in tourism has been very helpful to lots of tourist attractions in southern Indiana, and we are one of those that they have supported in the past. We are a 501c3, and we have had 2 national conventions that we've hosted. We have people from several countries in the world visiting us almost every month, and people from all the kind of states throughout the nation. So our experience with tourism has been great, but also our experience with safety education and inspiring people locally has also been very successful. The nice thing about this is that the grant allows some work to be done on that building as an expansion of our offerings, because we don't have the space right now to do everything we want to do with education or could do with the inspiration part. And so this grant comes as money from So in Tourism. It doesn't cost the city of Jeffersonville anything, and it's a grant of $125,000. So we have been involved in discussions. I have had discussions with Mr. Ways and other people, and I know he's excited about seeing that building improved and restored. He expressed that. He expressed an interest in perhaps our moving and giving up the site that we are not in now for that new building, and helping them also with the funding for the restoration of that building. That wasn't our original intention. Our intention was an expansion. Because our current site works so well for the history exhibits that we then show there. So we are certainly open talking about what would be in one site and what would be in the other, and if it turns out to be the best for the city and for us to make that transition completely at some point, but you have to realize that the new building is in terrible condition. And if something like this doesn't happen to that building, I am concerned that the eyesore will continue indefinitely. There are environmental problems. And now there were some questions also raised about how the bonding works, and Mr. Epperson from So Tourism is here this evening, and he can answer any questions about that might be good. But, you know, I see this as a plus for the city of Jeffersonville, plus for the people, plus for tourism, and I hope that we don't leave the $125,000 that doesn't cost the city any money. I hope that we don't leave that lying on the table. And I certainly am open to the kinds of discussions that Mr. Ways raised in his email, but that's a complicated thing, and we want to do what's best for Jeffersonville. We want to do what's best also that the mission of the Vintage Fire Museum continues and develops and benefits everybody, including children. Now, we'll be happy to answer any questions and go into anything else that any of you might have in mind. And there are also other people here who are very familiar with what the Vintage Fire Museum stands for, what it has done, and the like. We've enjoyed being here. We've enjoyed working with the city and working with downtown Jeffersonville. We're very active in that, and working with the people in arts and culture. We like to be cooperative and help the city.
I've got a couple questions for you.
Sure.
In the facility you're in now, what's your square footage?
Approximately 6,000 square feet.
And when this new one is completed, it will be?
On the first floor, the second floor may not be usable for purposes because there's no elevator or anything. The first floor would be approximately 16,000 square feet.
Okay, and so then if you get the $125,000 grant, has there been a study done yet? If it's in bad shape, it'll be more than 100. Has there been a study? What will be your project?
We are planning to begin a capital campaign this fall for $1 million. And that would be for restoration and development of the exhibits and the like. One of the things that could happen in the building, for example, is that we would have rooms showing the fire hazards in kitchen, fire hazards in a utility room, fire hazards in a bedroom, how to escape safely from a second floor as well as from a first floor, and so on. So that would be one of the things that we would do with that. And to go back to your question, we have a budget outlined of $870,000 with then some monies left for unforeseen additional expenses. The $125,000 that would come from the So Tourism, their generous grant, would go towards a new roof. The whole complex needs a new roof. And in fact, the $125,000 would not cover that full expense, but we've also received a very generous gift of $50,000. And between those two, we could immediately put on a new roof and begin making then the interior and exterior changes that would both beautify and make it serviceable. So, you mentioned a couple questions. That was...
what would you picture, which looks awesome, because I went down, I sent you an email, what was the actual address?
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Okay, and that building does have some problems.
Yeah, right.
So, but this isn't like you're not presenting us with, this is what it's going to look like. This is just an idea of what could be done, and then the number, like you haven't went as far as like, an architect hasn't looked at this yet. Like
yes, an architect has. Ron Stiller is the architect.
And he's the one, and Mr. Stiller is the one kind of providing with these numbers.
Right.
Okay.
That's right. Now, let me talk to you just a little bit about the visuals that I passed out. Those visuals do not involve any structural modifications to the north or south walls. And so the structure of the north wall, of the south wall, that's the one that I like, really. It looks like an old firehouse. It actually reminds some people of what the old firehouse in Jeffersonville looked like. That doesn't involve any structural changes. That involves, there is some repairs to some of the blocks that have to be done. There's some brickwork that has to be done. New wooden doors would be put on, and that are old-fashioned, and then paint, and that would require. So it doesn't require any, complicated engineering or architectural change. The north side, really the visual, and it might change some, but the north side, the desire is to tie it in with the lot that is part of Picasso Point, with all the wonderful children's games, the beautiful colors, everything like that. And we have indicated to Dawn that we would want her involved in any design and coloration and so forth. But this was done, these drawings were begun and started by students at Purdue.
I have a question. How
Sure.
many visitors do you have on a yearly basis?
Okay. Hold on. In 2017, we had a total visitation of just over 3,200. In 2018, we had 4,898. And this year, after the first 4 months, we were up 69% over the same time last year. In 2018, we had visitors from 25 states and 6 foreign countries. This year, in 4 months, we already have had 205 visitors from 29 states beyond Indiana and Kentucky. The largest number this year are from Ohio, Illinois, Tennessee, and Texas. In addition, 34 visitors in those first 4 months were from 8 foreign countries. And since then, we've hosted this national convention. Since then, we had the firefighters who were here for their convention from all over the state of Indiana. We've had them in, so our numbers have mushroomed. We anticipate that with an additional facility and so forth, that our numbers will continue to mushroom. And we anticipate, approaching 10,000 very quickly. Thanks for that question.
Any other questions?
How how much square feet will you have, including the parking lot area?
Ooh, that's a good question. The parking lot is probably also about, I'm going to say 15,000 square feet. And the part of that parking lot will be used for an outdoor memorial honoring fallen firefighters and also honoring those who gave their lives at 9/11.
How long is your, do you have a lease with redevelopment at your current location?
We do.
How long is that?
It's for 25 years.
How long have you?
It's 5-year renewable for 25 years.
Yeah, big difference. There's also out, it's needed for development purposes.
What year are you now?
We're in the first year of, it was just redone, and so we are in the first year of the first five years.
First year of the second 5 years.
It was, a new lease was done, and in the new lease, we're in the first 5 years.
And in the new building, what's the ownership status of the new building?
That is owned currently by Bales Auto Company. And as I said, they have had it for sale since October of 2017. And
So if the 125,000, that's not going to pay for, are they deeding this to you, or are they keeping the lease?
We have an agreed upon bid, and we have funding from the bank. Mm-hmm. We have bank funding for that. To purchase. And we are also now in the process of the environmental study. And there is a company out of Indianapolis that is heading that up. And there are some environmental concerns, but they also believe that there can be funding through insurance companies that will cover the expense.
Now, what if that funding is not found to do the environmental cleanup? Is this grant contingent upon the appropriate use of that property?
The purchase is contingent upon the appropriate use of the property.
But we'll have to apply for the grant and go through that process.
We would have to then talk to So-In Tourism and tell them the update on the situation and get their counsel and advice. If that money then had to be returned to them, it would be.
Okay.
Mr. Merkley,
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask, is redevelopment in support of this project? Is the administration in support of the use of these funds? And I'd like to hear.
I think Rob sent an email out this afternoon. You know, I think his position was correctly stated that he would support this project to the extent that it would also allow for the existing location for the Fire Vintage Museum to be relocated from where it's at right now. The administration's position is ultimately this is a city council decision. Also, I would point out the condition of the building is ultimately the responsibility of the property owner in the current condition it is in. I will personally say that I met with Dr. Peters and Councilperson White earlier this year in reference to this request. That's why I was a little taken back this week when I started getting emails that there was a resolution going to be drafted and a request was going to be made for funds from So-In for this project. Because in that meeting earlier this year with Dr. Peters and with Councilperson White, I stated that, you know, the administration supports the current location where the Fire Vintage Museum is, but there are other projects that the administration would like tourism dollars to help fund. One is the project that we just opened up partial bids on, which is the depot in the NOCO district, which is large storage containers, which is done in other cities as a food venue and an entertainment venue. In fact, redevelopment had made application to sew in for $1 million to help offset those costs. We received word that we only received $500,000, and then a week or 10 days later, we received word that now the Vintage Fire Museum is requesting $125,000. Now, the administration's position is we would much prefer, if there's $125,000 left on the table, that it go to the depot project that redevelopment in the city is investing in, a significant amount of dollars. And then also, it's the administration, and again, that was stated to Dr. Peters and to Councilperson White when I met with them a few months ago earlier this year. And also at that time, I stated that the administration also is looking at, to diversify the NOCO area in that we have prime real estate, and this being one of them, and we would much prefer to capitalize on the success and the uptick of our arts and cultural district to help attract other commercial development in the area that would generate tax revenue. Keep in mind, this is a 501c3. It's not going to generate any tax revenue for the city or for the redevelopment commission if it's inside a TIF. So that's where the administration is and where redevelopment is. Again, I was not aware of this until late Wednesday, that this was being discussed. So, but again, the mayor has said ultimately, obviously, it's the city council's decision as to whether or not it wants to sponsor the request from SOIN for the $125,000.
Mr. Epperson is here.
He is.
Can I ask you a question real quick? Thank you. If the $125,000 is not used for this project, is that available for other projects in Jeffersonville?
The board will have to decide. This was part of a package of requests that were due May 31. It wasn't until we got to the final vote that some board members realized that the Fire Museum's application did not have attached the required council resolution. You all passed a resolution that was attached to the depot request. This one didn't have that. The committee didn't catch it, and it got to the board. The board voted to table this one. The other four requests that scored well, there were actually 7 total applications. 5 scored well. 4 of them were decided upon. The 5th one, being Fire Museum, was tabled pending follow-up from Fire Museum. We had communication that said that they were also seeking a resolution from the city of New Albany because it had not gone anywhere with this body by the application date. So, benefit of the doubt, the chance to follow up, tabled it, and then if a resolution is passed tonight, then it would be voted on again by the board on August 14th at the next meeting. If there's no resolution, then it will go back. That money will go back into the pot. We'll move forward on the other 4 projects that have already been approved to get bonds issued for that, and either take this up later as a separate bond or wrap it into another series of applications in the future.
But ultimately, it'll still be available for future Jeffersonville project, or not?
It'll be open. It'll be probably available. The board has some flexibility here. The board can either turn around, take that 125, split it up between any one or all 4 of the other 4 projects, they can revert it back and just not commit the funds. A couple different paths that they could take.
Thank you.
But there has been action taken on the depot application, or the depot application. That action was granted $500,000.
Yes, that has been approved, and we're working with all the recipients of those funds on the news release for that, so that's why you haven't seen anything public on that.
Gotcha. The only other question I would have is kind of the same question I posed a minute ago as it regards to the ownership of the property in question. If it's determined that that property needs major cleanup and funding doesn't become available because insurance policies from the 60s are elusive, what then happens to that approved application from SOIN?
Our attorney, Jack Bissing, I think can speak well to the safeguards we've put in place with dispersal agreements to ensure that the project is actually moving forward before funds are released. So I would refer that to Jack.
Okay.
We have an unusual Convention and Tourism Bureau. It is unique in the state of Indiana. It is the only bi-county bureau. Clark County and Floyd County together. It has appointed board members from Jeffersonville, Clarksville, New Albany, Clark County Commissioners, and Floyd County Commissioners. It collects a room tax, not a property tax, from any property taxpayer. If you say you live in Clark County and you object to paying this tax, well, don't rent a room. If you're out cheating on your wife, you're paying the tax. Otherwise, no. We take 4% tax money. Started off being 3%. We're trying to get it increased to 6%. In 1984, Dick Wathen sponsored a modification to our statute, and he took 25% of the room tax and he devoted it to paying capital development tourism bonds, payments of bonds. We can't issue the bonds. The bonds have to be issued by City of Jeffersonville, Clark County, Clarksville, New Albany, some governmental entity. We then pay the payments. We pay the cost of setting it up. It doesn't cost the property taxpayer of Jeffersonville a dime. It's all paid for by people renting overnight rooms. Now, in this case, we've been good stewards over the years. We've taken a lot of money in, and we have spent. Like the River Stage wouldn't exist if we hadn't bought it. We paid for that. New Albany's band shell, we paid for that. We paid for the restrooms in New Albany at the riverfront. We have paid for a bunch of the bond issues around the Big Four Station, going up north in North Cove, the Arts District. We've paid for a bunch of that. Those are bond issues. But we put $500,000 into the depot. We think it's a good project. It's complementary to this. If you turn down this 125 for the fire museum, it doesn't necessarily go to the depot. Okay? It goes back into the pot.
And so if we grant the request to sponsor the 125 for the fire museum,
right?
If they take possession of the property and are unable to come up with the money for the environmental cleanup,
We wouldn't take possession of the property under those circumstances.
Okay, so if you just determine you can't take possession of the property,
that's a good question. That's a good question. What we have is what we call it. We created a system called dispersal agreements. Mm-hmm. We don't just give cash.
Right.
If you're not spending it on the approved project, then you don't get the draw.
But you're paying the bond on that.
Yeah, but the money's not going to leave us. We're going to hold the bond. We're not going to give the money out. we're not going to agree to a dispersal agreement, we're not going to spend it.
But you're still paying the interest on the bonds.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, that's true.
If 2 years down the road, the project, if it's not going to go anywhere, then we'll call the money back and use it to pay down the bond. So that's one of the risks. We try to minimize that as much as possible.
And the dispersal agreement doesn't help a lot on that.
So then they do have a time period in which they have to use the funds after it's approved.
Yeah, we'll, in final negotiations, we'll have some kind of a time period. And things have come up. We've had an environmental issue with a project in New Albany, and we've given them an extension. And we want to see the project done.
Sure.
We don't want to cut off our nose to spite our face.
Mr. Wilder, I see
Well, you know,
my attention.
Can I read between the lines, or you're all right with me just kind of telling you what I see here, whatever. So I first apologize. I apologize a lot. My kids wouldn't know as much as I apologize. So what I will say is this: I apologize for creating a part of this by forwarding emails to folks because I thought everybody had an entitlement to know what was going on. Mr. Merkley explained to me that the administration had no idea that this request was made until Wednesday of last week. And I felt compelled to let them know what was happening merely because the word bond, whenever I see it, which was a part of the proposed resolution, and the word urgent bond always scares me. The word bond shouldn't have scared me, but the word urgent obviously should have scared me because this urgency's created some real questions. So I'm going to read between the lines. What I'm going to tell you I've read between the lines is this. The mayor appears to control the votes on redevelopment, and this museum has 4 years left on a 5-year lease, and I've heard the redevelopment director for this mayor, because as we've talked about changing administrations and things, for this mayor at this time, there seems to be a forecast that they may not be there in 4 years. And what I'm reading in Mr. Waze's email that I shared with all of you all, with his permission, because you all weren't on it originally, is that the proclivity of this administration is they would like to see them be able to arrange themselves to go to a piece of property they own. Now, I don't know if I've made it clear. I'm just trying to read between the lines, and I don't think anybody said that, but it kind of sounds like what everybody's saying. I'm just going to kind of put it out there as what I think is being said. It doesn't cost you anything to vote on this resolution, and they get their $125,000. I'm just kind of the lawyer that's going to tell you what I think I heard everybody say. So if I created a bigger mess, then I'll apologize for that too.
Any other questions?
Can I make a comment about the
quickly so we can move
timeline on this? And that is that
that the applications were due by the end of May. So we had the meeting that with Mr. White and Les Merkley was there, and that took place in May. The council had already passed the resolution for supporting the depot project with this, and so we had not realized that yet. That's what we wanted to talk to Councilman White about. And then it came clear that the council, or that the mayor and others wanted the emphasis to be on the depot. Okay, so that was fine. So we asked, can we still submit our proposal? We did submit the proposal without that resolution from anybody. And to our joy, we found out approximately 10 days ago that a grant had been awarded to us. That's why we came to you with a request for the resolution. Not a request for money. We didn't do a request for money anywhere 10, 12 days ago. That didn't happen. That was all done last May.
And so that's why the situation was urgent to see if we could go ahead and receive that money, and it did not. We were told that it would not have any bearing at all on the depot project, on the grant for the
My name
depot.
is being brought up. I do want to make sure that it's clear that I did not express a preference about either project. What I advised you is that, based on my experience, that these requests for resolutions come from administration. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And then after you awarded the money, I advised you that again. Is that correct?
Right. That's right.
All right, then after to move along, is there any other questions or before we consider this resolution?
I have one question. Will there be a future request from you to the city for funding to help
I would
restore the
say
building and everything?
never say never. I'm not going to say one way or another, but it's not in mind now. That's for sure. And this request really is a request for a supporting resolution, not a request for any money. I hope that that's clear. But our capital campaign is not focused on money from the city of Jeffersonville. Nevertheless, we want to benefit the city of Jeffersonville, big time.
Any other questions, Casey?
Real quick, Wes, does this in any, I know there's a concern about having such a large footprint redevelopment. Rob has made clear. By saying yes to this, does that in any way hamstring a negotiation process for a move, which we talked about at the very beginning of this outset? Does this make a move any less feasible in any way that I'm not seeing? Did that just make sense, the one I just said?
I wouldn't know what the answer to that. My gut feeling would be that it seems sort of need to negotiate the out at the current location. I mean, right now there's no agreement for them to move from the current location if this materializes. So as we sit here today, they could stay in the current location and have the new location. There's no, they have balance, at least for the next 4 years.
Well, I think I heard, let's say, just to be factual about it, is if economic needs develop, you can terminate that lease in 4 years from after this year. So there would be no negotiation. It would be us proving that there was an economic need.
The economic, I think we have they can do that 6 months notice or something like that.
Yeah, so 6 months.
Yeah, that's in the lease.
So I don't think there has to be a negotiation. It would be the need of the city to prove that, and they could take action.
It seems like we're coming around the wrong way about going about this. The application was due at the end of May, and here we are at the end of the beginning of August asking for our supporting documentation for the application. I don't appreciate the circumstance, but I do want to see the Vintage Fire Museum have a place that they can call their own, and I think you've got good intentions and would make a good use of the space. I'll make a motion to approve 19R9.
Second. Have a motion and a second to pass 2019 R9. Any other discussion? I'd just like to add, I think it's very unusual that the redevelopment and administration doesn't support this and didn't bring this to us. And it's just very unusual because it's not money coming from the city taxpayers. So that tells me that there's a vision or a plan that this may inhibit in the future. So with that, I plan on voting no on this. I don't know if there's any other discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those against? Aye.
Wes is to pass, but you've got only one page to sign, so.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. Moving along, item number 15, is that correct? Mr. Merkley, it's a public hearing, it's an ordinance changing the zoning designations for 3712 Holman's Lane. And I never got the public comment sheet. Yes, Mr. White.
I just hope that this doesn't open the door to people not following the proper procedures, applying for things, and then backdooring, coming to us and getting that done. I feel very uncomfortable about this situation.
I agree.
Next, you have in front of you a ordinance to rezone property located at 3712 Holman's Lane. This comes to you with a favorable recommendation to rezone this property. The Planning Commission gave a favorable recommendation to rezone it from residential R1 to office commercial. And the applicant is Jeff Hartfield, and I do not know if Mr. Hartfield's here or he has an applicant or a representative, and I'll let Mr. Hartfield explain what he's proposing.
Thank you for your time today. My name is Jeff Hartfield. I'm Denham & Diamonds Financial Solutions, currently located in an office building next to Tumbleweed. I was approached by a neighboring tenant who wishes to expand their facility, of which I'm in the way, and they asked me if I had any interest in the near future of relocating. I suggested that would be a possibility, although the timeline was a little short. I wasn't sure I could accommodate. I did find a home on Holman's Lane in the middle of what I believe to be an area that is rapidly moving toward a commercial type venue, and so made the appropriate arrangements to get an accepted offer on the table, do some inspections to make sure that we can make it a suitable facility for our financial planning firm. I think we're very low impact in the community. We have roughly 250 customers. Over half of them are located out of town. We're very low impact, very low traffic, no special lighting requirements. We're kind of a traditional 8:30 to 5 office. We do end up with occasional after-hours meetings with clients with special needs. But I think we would be an asset to the neighborhood. I don't think we would be a disruption to the folks who are currently making their homes there for however long that would continue to be in the future. So we've asked for your consideration for this. What questions can I answer?
How many employees do you have?
Currently have 4. They have average tenure, well, I'm not going to say average. The youngest one's been with me 16 years, the oldest one 28.
This is my district, but I think people tend to shy away from converting residential into more commercialized building, but I do believe it fits with the growing of Holman's Lane and the area and the surroundings. That traditionally, I don't know if I would support a zoning taking residents and changing it, but I definitely, as Jeffersonville grows, the areas are going to grow and change, and this definitely is an area that's growing and changing. So
we have a public hearing, so let's go ahead and do the public hearing, and we can have our final discussions on this. And there's a number of people who signed up. I don't know if they wanted to talk about this rezoning or next, but we're going to go ahead and open the public hearing for the rezoning at 3712 Holman's Lane. If there's anybody here who signed up to speak about it or want to speak about it, for or against, come on up. Open hearing. Seeing none, we're going to close public hearing, and let's continue with the discussion, Council.
Just want to add to Councilman Maples. Mr. Hartfield has run a reputable business in Jeffersonville for a long time, and this is the type of business that we see along Allison Lane already. There's a chiropractor, I think maybe 2 doors down. There's a dentist office right 2 doors down. This seems to fit. I know a couple of the residents in the area, none of them have come forward with any concern So I think this is appropriate.
The structure on this property actually sits quite a distance off Holman's also, so. That, I'll make a motion to approve
I'll second.
2019 OR 37.
We have motion and second to pass 2019 OR 37. Any other discussion? No, it's a rezone, one and done. So we have motion and second for 2019 OR 37. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? It is rezoned. Thank you. Best of luck. Next up, another public hearing and a rezone for 241 Eastern Boulevard. Mr. Merkley.
Yes, I also would point out that the next two docket matters, 16 and 17, are in reference to the same property, but there are two different rezonings. One.
The first one we've got is the one that has 025.000. The park.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, the first one, there are two parcels that are the subject to rezoning. One is to zone property that's currently C2 to M3, which is multifamily. And the next parcel, which both parcels are located at 241 Eastern Boulevard, is to zone that parcel from C3 to neighborhood commercial. This is another application from, I think it's actually from the Jesse Ballou Gift Trust, but it's in reference to obviously a docket item that was on the agenda earlier with BWI. And I want to clarify some statements that were made earlier. This is the third location that BWI has targeted as a potential location for this development. BWI indicated to myself and the administration that it was interested in the Eastern Boulevard location as an alternative to the Louise Street. And BWI agreed not to oppose the rezoning of the Optimist Club back to single-family residential. And what the city agreed to do, which is what we did, we agreed to have a special meeting of the Planning Commission to hear this application, because it was our understanding they were under a deadline with the state to file for tax credits for this project. That special meeting occurred with the Planning Commission. They indicated they wanted a special meeting with the City Council. The administration does not control the City Council when the City Council meets or when it does not meet. Also would point out that there is a commercial component to this project. That's why there's two rezonings. And as a result of the commercial component, which I believe is going to be, would be proposed a grocery store, a medical office, and a laundromat, that if this would be rezoned, the city would be looking at doing some off-site infrastructure improvements on Eastern Boulevard, because they're sorely needed in that location, and if it was going to be developed, it would need to be done, but that was be contingent upon the City Council rezoning. The administration cannot commit to anything being rezoned. That is only the City Council's decision. The administration and the mayor has made it quite clear that the residents' voices need to be heard on these matters, just like on Louise Street, and that is the same for this application. That any development where residents have concerns or opposition, that they should be heard. So I just want to clarify that the city did live up to its agreement. There was a special meeting of the Planning Commission, and if for some reason this would be rezoned, obviously, like any other development, the city's here to make sure that we have the infrastructure to meet any additional traffic or any other concerns for the residents. but ultimately the rezoning is the city council's decision. At that being said, I believe Mr. Kraft is here, who will be presenting on behalf of the applicant, which is the Jesse Ballou Gift Trust.
Question?
The Plan Commission,
Planning Commission was unfavorable recommendation, unanimous unfavorable recommendation.
for both, right?
Yes.
That was my question. Thank you. This is a public hearing or public hearing? You want to, okay. Mr. Kraft, why don't you go ahead and explain the situation and then we can go ahead with public hearing.
Thank you. For the record, appearing on behalf of Jesse Ballou Gift Trust on both of these. And as Mr. Merkley indicated, these were before the Plan Commission at its last meeting. The two projects, they were then known at the Plan Commission level as PC 40 and PC 41. While that probably doesn't do much for you, PC 40 was the one that Mr. Merkley indicated was to change from a medium to large scale general commercial, big box, to a multifamily residential. Now, keeping in mind this is a zoning change. This is not a specific project, and it's a land use. And certainly, as I indicated, the Plan Commission, the elephant in the room may be BWI. But I think the important piece that Mr. Merkley attempted to address to you with regards to the commitment and the issue pertaining to the Louise Street wasn't quite everything that what was set out in it. But I will address PC 41 as well, and PC 1941 was actually to change from a C2 large-scale general commercial to a neighborhood commercial. So ultimately a down zone, taking a big box to a neighborhood commercial, and under the terms of your Jeffersonville zoning ordinance would have allowed for a small-scale neighborhood type store, neighborhood type project to service that particular area. The interesting aspect with the Louise Street property, and again, I know that's not before you, but I do believe it's important, and I'll just read you the email because I think the email in and of itself says it all. This is from Mr. Merkley to myself. As a follow-up to our telephone conversation this afternoon, it is my understanding your client has reached terms with Jesse Ballou to relocate its transitional housing development from the Optimus Club location to property owned by Mr. Ballou located off Eastern Boulevard. Furthermore, your client has agreed not to oppose the rezoning of the Optimus Club pending before the Plan Commission as long as the following occurs. 1, the rezoning application for the Ballou property on Eastern Boulevard will be presented to both the Plan Commission and Council on July 15th. The city will cooperate and make every effort to expedite the process to attain zoning approval, including calling a special meeting of the Plan Commission on July 15th prior to the council meeting that evening. 2, the Jeffersonville Housing Authority will partner with BWI for the transitional housing project to be located at the Ballou property at the new location on Eastern Boulevard. 3, in the event Housing Authority and your client are unable to obtain the necessary HUD approvals to partner on the development at the Eastern Boulevard location, then the city would alternatively agree to perform and fund public infrastructure improvements extending to the development on the site at Eastern Boulevard, such as public streets, sidewalks, lighting, etc., in the amount not to exceed $250,000. Please let me know if your client is in agreement with the aforementioned. Thanks. I believe it's important to bring that to your attention because I think it's important that you understand the positioning of BWI with regards to the Louise Street based upon those statements made and based upon why they didn't appear.
Mr. Kraft,
yes.
I know you can bring up Louise Street, but really we're looking at the merits of...
And I understand, and that's what this is about. That's specifically the Ballou property that's referred to in this email, and that's an important piece of it. But I think ultimately we have to look at that underlying project. I find it a bit ironic that The Louise Street property, the Louise Street project had a $10 million earmark funding already in place when the rezoning took place for them to move forward. That $10 million funding earmark is gone because of what the city did with regards to the issue of removing that and moving it to the new location. We're here this evening on PC 1940, which again I represent the Blue Gift Trust. That is a medium large-scale general commercial to multifamily. That is on a portion of that property located at 241 Eastern Boulevard. PC 41 likewise is medium to large-scale general commercial to neighborhood commercial. The idea behind this, of course, is based upon 36-74603, which again deals with the comprehensive plan, current conditions and character of structures and uses in each district, the most desirable use for which the property is adapted, conservation of property values throughout the jurisdiction, and responsible development and growth. In each of these instances, there was a staff report, and primarily included with that staff report was the provisions with regards to what the district intent permitted uses were for each of those. PC 40, again, which was to move it to multifamily, would take this to a use that would allow multifamily at this location, with a portion of that, which would be PC 1941, also fronting on Eastern Boulevard, to allow for a neighborhood commercial project. At the time of the Plan Commission, we presented those uses, those surrounding uses with regards to commercial, as well as those surrounding uses with regards to the residential side to address each of those 5 issues. I recognize you have the final say, and certainly from the standpoint, I believed it was important to bring to your attention the background behind why it is at that location. As it was indicated earlier by Mr. Mitchell, this was the 3rd location. While it was the 3rd location, it was the location that that BWI was directed in order to get away from Louise Street. We would ask this evening that you pass each of these, PC 1940 and PC 1941. I know it comes to you with an unfavorable recommendation. We would ask that you pass each of those ordinances. I'll take any questions you may have of me.
We're going to go ahead and open the public hearing first, and then you can respond to the questions, or from the council or from the public. All right, so I have a number of people who have signed up. We're going to go ahead and open the public hearing. You don't have to be signed up to speak about this issue because it is a public hearing. But if you signed up, please come up and let me know you signed up. Give me your name and go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Carol Moon. I am the president of the Claysburg Neighborhood Association that is right there at the Eastern Boulevard. And we ask this board to take the recommendations from the Plan Commission and do not pass this zoning. We ask this board not to put anything else at the back door of Claysburg, at the side door. We have enough servicing agents. We have a homeless shelter. We have a soup kitchen. We have a men's shelter. The Serenity House is at our back door. We ask, and we have the sewer treatment plant. We hear the mayor and a lot of city officials say that Jeffersonville is on the move. We are seeing a little bit of progress in Claysburg. It's a neighborhood that's been overlooked by this city. We pay tax dollars, and we want to look just like the rest of the city. It wasn't good for the other neighborhoods. It's not good for Claysburg. We're about fixing up what has been messed up. Maybe not by this council, but by plenty of other city councils that has dumped things in Claysburg. We met with the mayor just last Tuesday. He talked about the progress in downtown Jeffersonville and how it's been cleaned up. Our response was yes. Some of the things that were downtown Jeffersonville are now in Claysburg. I heard them say this is the last location to be selected. I hope it's not the location that you guys select. Thank you.
Carol, did you give your address?
My address is on the sheet. I live at 1711 National Avenue, Jeffersonville, Indiana, 47130. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Laverne Vaughn, and I live in the Claysburg neighborhood. My address is 203 Luther Circle, and I'm here opposing the rezoning of the property on Eastern Boulevard for the reasons that we had mentioned twice before by coming here. We feel like, it's not a good fit for our neighborhood. We have a lot of stuff already in place in this neighborhood, and we just really cannot handle any other type of low-income housing for this neighborhood. I understand about homeless and drug abuse and all that kind of stuff because I work at the hospital. I'm a first assistant in the operating room, and I know about it, and I go to University Hospital every day to work, and I see the homeless all on the street and everywhere, and I just feel like, this is not a place for it to be in this neighborhood because we have small children in this neighborhood, we have senior citizens, and we are just as good as any other neighborhood in Jeffersonville. We pay our taxes just like everybody else. We vote. I have never not voted. I'm old now, but I have voted from the time I got 18 years old. I vote for every time we have an election. I vote. And I have 2 children that I instill that in them, and now that I have grandkids, they are beginning to vote. And I feel like, our vote is important even to you to vote you in office as city councilmen and everything. So I feel like, Claysburg is not a good fit for this type of situation. And I feel, that you would have mercy on us because, we have too much going on in our neighborhood. It's not safe. And to put something like that back in a neighborhood, it just brings more problems. And we just cannot tolerate anything else, The Bible tells you that, it's going to be poor from beginning to the end. And, we just cannot Claysburg cannot solve all the problems in Clark County. And we feel very strongly that we do not want BMI to come to in our neighborhood to put a transitional care facility in our neighborhood, and we hope that you feel the same way. Thank you and bless you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. Bruce Newharth with Sodrell Truck Lines, here representing the Honorable Mr. Sodrell, who unfortunately was called out of town to a board meeting in Maryland. For us in our position as a company, we ask that you not accept this transition housing in the neighborhood. And Mr. Sodrell wanted to go on record with that he is not in favor to support this particular move at this time. Feels there's adequate transition housing in the area and would not support this property being rezoned. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Anthony Lytle, live at 1808 North Spring Street, Jeffersonville. I'd just like this, do you all have families or kids, grandkids or nephews, nieces? We can't let our grandchild play in our own yard even though it's fenced in. We've got dogs, we've got video cameras, but there's so many homeless people, and I'm not opposed to homeless people. I've tried renting to the last few, but it didn't work out. I go around my place every day or every other day and pick up garbage all the time. They just walk and throw it down, syringes. And if you put this out there on Eastern Boulevard, it's not going to be better. It's going to be worse because they're called transition housing. They're going to transition from one homeless shelter to that one, and the business that they're going to put up are going to go out of business because nobody's going to shop there because of the people around it. And they're already letting people straight out of prison stay at the shelter now. Nobody probably knows that, but they're letting them come straight from prison, no matter what they've done, and stay at the shelter now. And there's some lady comes through there every morning about 5 in the morning, screaming at the top of her head. First time I thought she was fighting with somebody, she wasn't. She was whacked out on something. The cops are out there all the time. If you want to give $50,000 to help homeless people, you need to actually give $150,000 to the police and fire department. They got to put their hands in the pockets of people with needles. And then their kids, and they go home and worry about they're giving something to their wives or their families, worried about losing a loved one. You know, and if you all let that thing go out there, I got rental properties out there. I can't put a for rent sign in any of my houses, none of them. I got to put it on the corner, because if I put it in front of the house, crackheads will come up and steal the central air unit and gut it right on the property so they can go get their stuff. If you all make any judgments at all, please go out there and look in that area. Go through it all different times of day. Or I'm sure the mayor said that his security guy or whatever was worried about him going out there at 11:30 in the morning. You know, and we live out there. We have to see this. They take dumps in the street, in the alley. They have sex in the alley. They got prostitution on the side of Peasley and Spring. This one woman, she should be a millionaire by now. I mean, it's crazy. If you all let that go, you're killing businesses that have been loyal to Jeffersonville already for years and years. My family came here in 1878. And if it wasn't for that, I'd be gone, because I just wouldn't want to deal with it anymore. And you're going to kill property taxes if you let that go out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Pauline Shanklin. I live at 204 King Circle, Jeffersonville, Indiana. I am strongly opposed to what BWI is trying to approve. I cannot see how you can put a Band-Aid on a cut that's already bleeding. And that's what we are. We're bleeding. We have so much out there. I see so much. I'm not in the core of Claysburg. I'm at the edge of Claysburg. And I have walked out underneath my carport and stumbled over someone sleeping underneath my carport. I tried to walk in Lanston Park every day. I can't do that anymore. I can't do it anymore. I'm looking at people having sex. They don't seem to mind me seeing them. I have people asking for the socks off of my feet while I'm walking. Ma'am, when you're finished, can I have your socks? I'm looking at people who just don't care about throwing trash on the grass where they have a trash can at arm lengths away. We have so much to contend with already. Please don't put anything else on us. Our neighborhood can't take anymore. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, good evening. My name is John Goldman. I'm the president of the Louisville, Indiana Railroad, located at 500 Willinger Lane. As you all may know, our rail yard backs up right next to this property. And as a railroad, not only for us as an individual railroad, but in the industry, the biggest problem we have is trespassing. And you vote in this ordinance to allow a group of people to move into their homes right there. I can assure you that with the 24 years of experience that I have, I know what will happen. They won't stay on the street. They won't stay on the sidewalk. They will be walking through our rail yard, and it was just a matter of time before something catastrophic happens. So as a railroad, we do not support this change of city ordinance. Thank you. So, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jumong Bhat. Adjoining to this property, we have 4 parcels of land in that area. First and foremost, about 2 weeks ago, the hotel across in Clarksville was closed, and that was for many reasons and issues that all of these guys talked tonight. And additionally, on that property that we're talking about tonight, there was a homelessness camp that the city has removed already. Our family strongly opposes this, and there are lots of issues that needs to be resolved and not bring additional problem to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, it's me again, Ryan Mitchell. Just a couple of things. There's a lot of irony in today and a lot of things. We've looked at a lot of sites in the city, probably a couple hundred. We put our feet on 100, including the site of the gentleman who just spoke, who wanted to sell us his site across the street. We've talked to everyone who would listen, and we have listened to everyone who would talk. We have looked at every piece of dirt, and along every step of this project, everyone has said, this is a really good project, just not on the site. Many on this panel have said that to me at one point or time or another, and I said, okay, tell me where it's at. Help me find a site. I will go anywhere that we can make this work. And anyone who is willing to listen or to tell or to have a conversation about it, we tried to have that conversation. A couple of things just to clarity. This is not transitional housing. It's called permanent supportive housing. It's the brainchild of the federal government, who had hundreds and hundreds of specialists who have basically taken their lives to say, okay, we have a problem with homelessness, how do we fix it? It's not BWI's solution. This is a federal program. And how it's come to us is the federal government sends a lot of money to the state. The state contacted us and said, you guys have more of these properties than anyone. The southern part of the state has nothing. Will you guys please go down there and find a home for a project? And we've never not been able to find a home for a project. That's probably why they asked us to do it. And we ended up, and we've spent 2 years on this process. And here we are. And to quote Councilman Samuel earlier, and I think this is appropriate, he said, obviously what we're doing is not working. And I think that's fair. I don't think anyone would disagree with that. But what's going on right now is not working. This is a federal program that says this is how you make it better. Some of these meetings have gotten out of line in some ways, just with some emotions, and I will say this one is not, in my opinion. The comments we heard here, I think, are all extremely appropriate. And most of them said there's a problem. We have a problem. And I think what I have heard, because we've done public meetings, a lot of public meetings in the city, and I think everyone who spoke tonight I have met, except for the businesses. And they said, we're hurting and we don't want another bad project, And all I can say is this is the program to fix these issues that we're talking about. I did not come up with this. What we do is not do. What we're coming up with is a solution: wraparound services, mental care, health care, and really nice housing. Originally, it started at $10 million because we moved site. We got into a different QCT, and that opens up more funding. Now we're looking, because we're going to have a commercial, a grocery store and a laundromat, we're looking $13+ million. It's a lot of money. And there's a reason why the government will say, here's that much money. There's a reason why. And again, it's not my secret or my path or BWI's path, but this is something that has been created for many years and is active, I believe, in every state. So that's the plan. That's the project. You guys are familiar with it. I don't think you guys probably have any content questions specific, but I hope it works. And if you guys care, if this funding is lost and this is the last shot, it'll go back to the state. It'll go to a different city. And that's just the way it works, and it won't get ear tag marked here for a while because they know that we couldn't get it done. So it won't be BWI or another developer. You know, the money will go back in the kitty, and it will go to another community that has a need for homelessness. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's still public hearing, so if anyone else needs to speak or would like to speak.
Yes. My name is Victoria James. I live at 204 Martin Circle here in Jeffersonville, Indiana, 47130. The reason why I want to just say a small thing is that I used to walk, and so I know how Pauline feels. We walk for our health, but now we cannot walk anymore. No telling what's in the park. I mean, people lying there under the gazebo, on the ground, anywhere. And all kind of, I don't know nothing about drugs. They tell me don't touch the syringe. I ain't going to touch nothing anyway. But the point being, I shouldn't have to walk over there and see this. I can't take my grandbaby over there. I wouldn't dare. But I see neighbors that are letting two little kids go over there. I tell them, don't send your kids there. Another point, it was a school, Spring Hill School, which is still there at the moment. But that's a safety hazard for those kids to go through the park to get to the school. Another thing I know of is that they sleep anywhere they want to. I don't know how many times they have fixed that gazebo. But my sister's house, they right behind her house, in any movement, they sit out there and they whistle all day long. I'm telling you right now, it's dark out there. I'm not Cinderella, but I know I have to be home at a certain hour because no telling what's walking up and down my street. It's bad when I'm afraid to live in the neighborhood. I'm paying taxes. Believe me, I pay taxes. They're really hitting me hard. But somebody that's in the neighborhood that don't pay a tax, a penny, a dime, can walk up and down it free, but I can't. There's a problem somewhere. And as he said, yes, we do have a problem in our neighborhood. And yes, it needs to be fixed. And it's not going to be fixed by bringing more problems out there. I appreciate you all. Thank you. And I'm definitely no voter.
May I address one issue?
No. I'm sorry. We're going to keep moving forward, give everybody a chance to speak.
Do we have anybody else in the community?
Hello, my name is Vanessa Brown. I live at 209 Martin Circle. I'm raising 3 granddaughters. There has been a homeless person try to grab my granddaughter. That's the problem. I can't let them out in my yard. It's bad. We don't need this. This is ridiculous. And I called the police all the time. They were leaving themselves on the gazebo. Takes the police 30 minutes to get there. No, I have little girls. I have stopped them from coming out the door because they're having sex out there. We're leaving out the back door. They're having sex on the gazebo. I'm stopping my granddaughters from coming out. I shouldn't have to do that. We have enough. I've had enough. Thank you.
Anyone else here? Any new people to speak? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close public hearing. So, public hearing is closed. Mr. Kraft, do you want to respond and make any comment? Any final comments? No?
No.
Good. Mr. Merkley, did you want to say anything?
I just wanted to clarify, we're considering, these as 2 separate. Do you want to consolidate or?
BC 40, BC 41, you consolidate into one ordinance.
So that hearing satisfied?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm just trying to clarify.
Another public hearing with the same comments for the same property. Contrary to their belief, I'm a nice guy.
There was reference earlier by Mr. Kraft in the email that was sent from myself as the city attorney and corporation counsel, and I wanted to hand that out to clarify. This was an email that was sent to Mr. Kraft in an attempt to resolve some pending or potential legal issues between the city and his client in reference to the Louis Street proposal for the project. I didn't fabricate anything.
That's lawyers, the completeness doctrine. You must have completeness.
I made sure I printed out the portion that said confidential, though.
I didn't bring it up.
Yeah. Again, put that in context. That was an email from one attorney to another attorney in an attempt to resolve some pending and potential legal issues involving the city. More importantly, the mayor did not sign that. He did not sign any document. He did not sign any agreement. So it was an email from one attorney to another. But more importantly, if you look at the list, there's 3 items there. For one item, the city complied with. We did have a special meeting of the Planning Commission. It wasn't on the date that was in that email, but we couldn't get a quorum. The other 2 items in that email is contingent upon the rezoning of this property. The rezoning of this property is the city council's decision and sole authority as the legislative body, not the mayor, not the administration. So to present emails that were written confidentially between 2 attorneys to somehow distort the narrative, I take issue with, because the mayor did not, the mayor has said all along that the residents need to be heard, they need to be listened to, whether it's on Louis Street, whether it's on Eastern Boulevard, or whether it's on Ewan Lane. And that is still his position. So I just wanted to, for the record, to present that email. Normally we would say that that is not admissible because it was for settlement negotiations, but obviously that's out the window. That's all.
All right, council, open for a motion or any other discussion regarding this topic.
Can I give you the numbers real quick?
Sure.
The first one, which has 10-19-0800-025, will be number 38. The second one, 10-19-0800-030, will be 39.
Well, I want to say something before we go any further. I've already got my mind made up as to how I feel about this company, especially coming to Claysburg. My family home is where I was born and raised, and I'm in that area every day. I have met a number of times with representatives of BWI, and I've even talked with the mayor about asking him what was his support of this project. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago in the Ken Ellis Center. Right before that meeting, I called the mayor to the side and I said, Mayor, I'd like to know what your position is on this project. And he told me, said, whoever said that I'm supporting this project is telling a damn lie. That's exactly how he told me. Now, I have talked with Gary Hobbs, who is president of BWI. As a matter of fact, Gary called me and he had Jesse Blue on the other line, and they tried to persuade me to support putting this project out there. And I told them right there that it was unconditional for them to think that I would go against the desires of the neighborhood. And my position this evening is I'm going to support the desires of the people in the neighborhood. And I also pulled up some information on the internet about a place in Indianapolis called Penn Place. And the information that I had been given prior about Penn Place, to me, was a lie. And I'll just tell you straight out, that's the way I see it. I thought it was a lie. The security and everything that was represented for Penn Place did not exist by what the news reporter said on his article. So I would like to make a motion that we turn down, I think, or I make the motion that we follow the recommendation of the Plan Commission in denying this rezoning.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. It's going to be to pass 2019 OR 38, because all motions are in the affirmative. So if you're against it, vote no.
Okay.
Just for clarification.
Can I make a motion that I want it to fail, so how do I?
Yeah, I think
Make
we
a
understand.
motion to approve with the intention that it won't pass.
Right. All right.
That'll be your motion.
All right.
Okay, there's a motion and a second for 2019 OR 38. Any other discussion?
I'd like to say something real quick. Some of the stuff almost led me to tears that they brought to our attention tonight. So I would like to either have talks with the police department, the administration, with Dustin, it's his district. We have got to get something done. We have a city park. I have a neighborhood park, which was Inman, and I'm going to tell you, JPD will get behind us. We just have to let them know, because I've fought gang members. I've had the same thing. I still, during it, had, my daughter was 11 years old, and when I walked over there, the same thing, with sex going on in that park and the drugs and all that. My neighborhood, we bound together, we stood together. We're going to have meetings. We're going to get something done.
Any other discussion? Any other council discussion?
So if I might, would you make sure that everyone is clear on how they're voting? What each one of them, I know, just for Ms. Gilden.
Go ahead, Mr. Wilder.
The motion is to pass.
The motion to pass, and the result of the motion to pass is that you're following the recommendation of others.
I'm going to call for roll call vote.
The motion is to approve the change.
Correct.
Right.
So if we vote no, then it fails.
Then it fails.
Exactly.
Yes.
I'd like a roll call.
All right, with that, roll call vote.
Let's be kill.
Is this the portion that's going to M3 or that's going to neighborhood commercial?
This
While
is
she's
the
getting ready.
portion that's going from C2 to M3.
And there's no M3 adjoining, correct? There's no M3 adjoining?
Okay, Councilperson White.
No.
Councilperson Paris.
No.
Councilperson Maples. Councilperson Gill. No. Councilperson Hawkins.
No.
Councilperson Owen.
No.
Councilperson Samuel. No. Councilperson Ellis.
No.
Council President Zastabny.
No.
It passes for all noes.
So we have a number 17, which is also related to this, and this is also a public hearing. It's 2019 OR 39.
I think we combined them.
They didn't agree to combine those. They agreed to combine.
Yes. Just need a separate motion and a separate.
We don't have the public. hearing?
No, we combined.
All right, great. Okay.
I'll make a motion to pass with the intention for it to fail 2019 OR 39.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for 2019 OR 39. Roll call vote, please.
Yes, sir. Get my paperwork over here. Councilperson White.
No.
Councilperson Parrish.
No.
Councilperson Maples.
No.
Councilperson Gill.
No.
Councilperson Hawkins.
No.
Councilperson Owen.
No.
Councilperson Samuel. Councilperson Ellis.
No.
Council President Sestovny.
No.
None opposed.
All right.
Mr. President, may I say?
Yes, sir. Right.
Mr. Gill, thank you for what you said, and I will inform you that I have been in touch with community outreach.
I'm sure you have.
And police department regarding the issues that have been out there, and intend on having a representative at the next neighborhood association. So these things have not gone unnoticed.
And I didn't mean to.
I understand, but I'm putting it on the record that these things are taking place. Secondly, I look forward to the $250,000 improvements on Eastern Boulevard by the administration.
What's that on the record?
All right, moving on. Number 18.
That's fantastic.
Ms. Metcalf, an ordinance transferring certain funds within the same department. I guess it's 2019 OR 40. All right.
So the first part for the Parks Department is, they have $10,000.
Can you please take the conversation outside? Thank you.
Yeah, keep going.
These are for the utilities for the Envision Center for the last 4 months of the year, since it was not part of, known to be budgeted at the time we did budget, so this is how they can pay for the utilities at that new facility.
Transfer, which I like to see, so I'd like to make a motion to pass ordinance 2019 OR 40.
Second.
On the first and second reading?
Yes.
We have a motion and second to pass 2019 OR 40 on first and second reading. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, passes. Next up, we got to bring back the claims, right? We're at the end?
No, we have an additional also.
19.
Oh, yeah, we have one more. 41.
Yeah.
Ms. Metcalf.
Yes, Paul is also here to speak for this, and Chief Kavanaugh. The first four are for the reappropriating the UEZ donation, $25,000 for the Envision Center. The second one is for the police, or the second portion for police is for $112,000 for a buyback. The next two for the parks for professional services and bank fees is also reappropriating a receipt they had for a donation. And then the last two have to do with an email that Paul sent out regarding the Envision Center staff. So department heads are here to discuss if you need to.
You said $25,000 UEZ donation?
Yes.
Yes. Broken down into those four funds.
Oh, it's split up?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Unless there are any questions, I'll make a motion to approve 19 OR 41 on the first and second.
Second. Motion second to pass 2019 OR 41 on the first and second reading. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It passes.
Is this additional appropriations? I'm sorry, Alex.
Yes,
Yes,
sir, it
it's
is.
additional appropriation.
I'm voting no.
That's what I thought I heard you say. You voted no.
Okay. Now claims.
Now we can go back to the claims. Claims to be approved, the civil service claims. Civil claims, yes.
Yes.
There
And I
was
passed
a
around.
question?
Yeah, it was for tuition. And the only thing I would just ask is if the administration would make sure and
follow policy or whatever they said earlier, there is a policy in place, so just make sure it's followed.
And, okay, I mean, so I'll make a motion to approve, but I do have a question.
Well, remember the contingent part on the safety claims.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, but there's questions, so go ahead.
Discussion on it.
Yep.
I know of at least 2 employees that we've helped pay tuition. How do we pick and choose employees that,
First of all, availability of funds.
Okay.
Second is ultimately is the decision of the department head whether or not it's work related, job related to what they do for the city.
Okay.
And then we also have some clawback for which one were you? Which one?
It's on page 12.
So forfeit action. So $19,000.
$19,000.
Of the federal forfeiture.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yeah, they have to
Between 11 and 13.
Chief, that's a pretty good investment. Can you give it a word or two about what it is?
And I appreciate you giving me the opportunity. Councilman Samuels, you're correct under the city handbook. However, these funds are under the Department of Justice guidelines. We are partners in the Federal Asset Forfeiture Fund. That is where we have officers assigned to the DEA task force and the FBI task force. These funds are not tax dollars. These are federal seized funds, and the guidelines we are operating under is the Department of Justice guidelines. So this is not within the scope of the city of Jeffersonville, but as part of the Department of Justice and 21st Century Policing, these are the guidelines that you're to operate within seizing these funds to proceed forward in a manner for use. So through supportive guidelines on the DAG forms that we file for, but within that scope and manner, this is the direction that the funds go for. So right now, we have an officer that was entering a year ago in a graduate program. As we're moving forward with the department, and I can give you a perfect illustration is today, I started my first meeting off with Prosecutor Mull. Later by 11 a.m. I was meeting with Mr. Merkley getting assistance, and right now Mr. Wilder represents us in the Police Merit Commission. And we are, with his contract, which is a record, I think it's approximately $20,000, we are going to exceed that this year. With that officer entering into the program, this officer and I entered into discussion for within the last year, and I was able to steer the officer into going into a law program. As the department's growing and as the department is continuing forward with the mission, we do need more services in the law department. Not finding fault or finding manner, but having the officer to start, we were able to, within the last year, using these federally seized funds and the Department of Justice guidelines, we were able to use the funds in this scope and manner. So part of me working with the officer going into the graduate program, and as the chief of police, the administrator, I'm using the Department of Justice guidelines to proceed forward and to make this expense with the officer going into school. This is something that we're not going to probably, I don't know if we're going to be able to sustain, but this is going into that scope and manner. So I understand you have concerns, but with the city policy, but we're operating under the Department of Justice guidelines, and within that scope and manner, I do even have the question that I understand you had the claim held, but I'm not really sure where this actually falls, how that could actually be held, because these funds are not city funds, and then we're audited and we're in compliance with the Department of Justice within the manner of how to proceed and spend with those funds, and that's where we're accountable. The last audit that we've had, not any issues and problems. I think if you see within the last couple of years, I don't want to call any agencies' names here in southern Indiana, but if there's issues and problems within the guidelines of utilizing those funds, the Department of Justice comes in and acts accordingly. But our audits, you're more than welcome if you want to come into the department, set an appointment and look at some of those of records. And we have officers that we have an officer that is administering with the funds and the guidelines, and also a civilian employee as well with the asset forfeiture sharing program.
A couple things real quick. So we had it held until we had an answer.
Okay.
So it's not held beyond a minute. Second thing, what I think I heard from the administration, but then I think I heard something different. They said there's clawbacks. You said there's no clawbacks. What happens if the clawback meeting, if the officer attends the law school this year, at the end of when his classes are done, he says, you know, I want to work somewhere, wherever it is. Then the city of Jeff just paid $19,000 for one semester.
You have to understand the city of Jeff did not pay. These are federally seized funds from the Department of Justice that we participate in the programs with. We have a full-time officer with the DEA task force. We have an officer full-time with the FBI, and we have part-time with the Secret Service. So the city.
Do we approve these?
So the city of Jeffersonville. I'll stop. Go ahead.
So,
go ahead.
Ms. Metcalf, can you explain how the money gets to the city? I understand that.
Right, you approve the claims, but you do not approve the budget. So it's an unappropriated fund.
And the money comes from?
Forfeitures.
From
federal government.
So we're passed through.
And we're under no responsibility.
Correct.
This body's under no responsibility for how that's spent.
The chief would ultimately answer the federal grand jury if things went south.
Okay.
And the 204-page document guideline of the equitable sharing partnership program we participate in, that's where I'm accountable to. And also the audits that come by way. So those funds are utilized for training equipment within the scope and manner and everything that's identified within that 204-page document guidelines that we can proceed to spend those funds. So getting back to where we are with the department moving, the goal is within the next 4 years, 4.5 years, to actually have an attorney with the department that's going to be operating. So Corporal Drew Lighting is that actual officer working in that program, and we've worked it out with that officer to be able to attend part-time outside of his scope of duties, which he has within the department, several duties. Absolutely.
I got one. Shall we approve the claim? We have to look like.
Yeah, and take just seconds for other. I noticed on our animal shelter fund, we paid a cell phone stipend out of the general fund, and we also paid one out of professional services. Is that?
Hold on just a moment. What page
sorry,
are you
I'll
on?
give you page 4 and page 8. It seems like the same style payment, one paid out of professional services and one actual paid out of cell phones. Is that?
In page 8, you said?
Fund 210, the spay and neuter professional services.
Yeah, that's not, it should not come out of the spay and neuter. It's probably just put into the wrong account. It should have been coming out of the cell phone on page 4.
Okay.
So it just needs to change its account number.
Okay. I suppose the question in future budgets, it could say that we came in light on cell phones.
Right, right.
So you'll change that?
Yes.
Correct that? All right.
Page 8.
All right, with that, we have to entertain a motion.
Motion approved.
We already have a motion,
With what amendment?
Well, changing the account number on that one on page 8, and we are checking to see if we're obligated to pay the 2 from safety on page 6.
That's correct.
That's my motion.
Right. Any other discussion? Sorry. All those in favor? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Don't leave before you sign it.
Yep, sign it. Mr. Wilder, you don't have any comments, do you?
I apologize. That's all I can say.
Good. Department heads. Any department heads speaking here today? No?
They're good.
All right, public comment. There are a couple more people who signed up that didn't have a chance to speak. Please state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes.
I'm Jason Slater, 440 Thompson Lane, Jeffersonville, Indiana. I purposely waited to the last of the meeting so it didn't seem political at any situation. But I just wanted to give you all my experience of trying to find information about the city. As you know, I've submitted requests for public information from different commissions. That is information that, to me, should just be readily available to the public. Now, at a certain point, going through the website and trying to obtain this information, I just got to an area where the information wasn't available. And at that time, I submitted request. I am just simply submitting a suggestion that the council looks at how the information is out there and how it's presented. Maybe it's a redoing of the website. Maybe it's a document that says, hey, here's how you can get all this information, because there's information from federal audits and state audits on the State Board of Accounts. There's the Indiana TIF gateway that shows all the debts that are there for the Redevelopment Commission and the bonds. And then also there's the DGILF, which also has information. So I'm just making a suggestion that you all might want to review that and make it easier for the public to access that information. That's all I really have to say, and I appreciate it.
Sure. What kind of information are you looking for? If it has anything to do with those audits and things,
well, there's
we're not obligated to put them on.
I'm not stating that you're obligated to do it, but obviously if it's a public information, then it should be out there anyways without having to make a request. Now, the State Board of Account, if you go in there, it shows different things from where the federal review, it said that there's this thing's occurring, and of course then it'll be followed up where the controller and other people are responding to it and showing that that stuff has got approved. But for an average citizen trying to find that information, it could be a little bit difficult for them, and they may not even be wanting to ask that information. I'm just explaining the procedure that I went through and the information that I've obtained. And I'm just suggesting to try to make it a little bit easier for people to understand what's going on.
Thank you.
And one more quick thing. Simple as Mr. Kraft pointed out, where he read off an email. And as Merkley said, that was confidential. But that had never got explained. No one would have known the mayor's involvement. No one would have known Merkley's involvement if that deal had not gone south. That would have never got brought up in this meeting.
Nor should it have.
I'm not disagreeing. But what I'm showing, what I'm trying to explain is there's a lot of information out there that's not readily available. So I appreciate your time.
All right. Is there a Ryan Mitchell who'd like to speak?
No, that was a BWI.
Oh, that was BWI, okay. I missed that one.
You missed it.
I missed him. And what about Brad Borum? It said Rocky, so he probably not want to talk. All right.
I don't think it's in my
Oh, Brad.
We took that off.
Yeah, okay, good. That's it. I don't have anyone else. All right, with that, council comments, Ms. White.
No comment.
Mr. Parrish.
Wait a minute, on behalf of Mr. White, I'd like to recognize his mother in the back of the room and say thank you for being here.
She lives in Claysburg.
Oh, here.
Mr. Maples.
That's
Ms. Gill.
Yes, I just want to remind everybody, we have National Night Out tomorrow from 6 to 8. And I also want to know, did we get Andy's thing situated with his
Yes,
employee?
I thought we did.
Because they said the minutes didn't, do we need to make any kind of?
If you made a motion, that would double clarify everything. That would be great.
Because it was already in the additional appropriation.
It was in the additional appropriation, yes, but it wasn't clear that it was retroactive.
I'll make a motion to retroactive Andy's employee to go back from January 1, because it kind of was a housekeeping, fell through the cracks. We never got a name of the employee. I just know he has sent several emails to get this done. So,
yes.
The amount appropriated was correct, right?
Yes.
For it to be retroactive?
Yes.
Second.
A motion and a second to make it clear that it would be retroactive pay. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's clarified.
Well, State Board of Accounts will look for it in a minute.
Are you talking about this?
I'm going to go pay.
That's not fair. The meeting should have Mr. Hawkins.
This has a short in it. It's been blinking on and off, and it definitely has its on. I turn it on, it does that. My voice does not need amplification.
Maybe you should skip to the next.
No, what you have in front of you, which was people were kind enough to photocopy and give to you, was the Jeffersonville Redevelopment Commission TIF report presentation, and it has a black front page. I will let you discover its wonders on your own and answer any question you have, but what you are looking at is put together by Umball, or associates of Umball, somebody attached to them. Baker Tilly. And what they have to do by law is we have to hire them or someone to come and kind of assess the health and nature of the TIF districts that are in Jeffersonville. And it puts it all in one convenient place for you once a year. And they presented this as it is in a PowerPoint presentation, and this is what you're looking at. It tells the obligations, the debt payments, the tax increment, and a very important date, if you look at them individually, is when they roll off. And we have many of these rolling off really in the not too distant future, 05, 27, which sounds like it's far away, but that in fact is not. And some of them are rather significant. So if you have questions about TIF districts, which Mr. Ellis, Councilman Ellis and I have had these conversations about making them more transparent to the council and to everyone, you can kind of look through this. If you have a specific question, just email it to me, and I probably won't know the answer, but I can certainly find out the answer from somebody. So I told you a couple council meetings ago I'd get this to you. We finally get around to getting to it. So take a look, and if you need anything from me, let me know.
Is that online? Is it on the city website?
It will be after tonight.
Okay, through the clerk's office.
All right, Mr. Owen.
Good.
Mr. Ellis.
Yes, a little while back, we bought a table for the Samaritans Award dinner, and they sent an email out. They want to know how many people will be coming so that they can have your seating assignments and everything for that Samaritans Award dinner. We bought a table of 8 for $1,000. And so I would, if you would send me or Vicki the information about who's going, who will be going with you, I really appreciate it.
Is it 28th?
It's on the 15th.
Thursday the 15th of August?
Yes, Thursday the 15th.
Is it in
From
Hubers?
5:30 to 9 p.m. at Hubers.
I can't make it, so somebody can,
I'm going. You put me down.
I'm putting you down right now. 1 or 2 tickets. You get 2 tickets, okay. That's all I want to know. Nathan? Anybody else? I'm putting you down. You can let me know.
Is that it, Mr. Ellis?
That's all.
Mr. Samuel? Oh, wow. All right.
My reputation.
Just to say, it was one of our longer meetings. I think everyone conducted themselves professionally. Glad to see it, including the audience and the council. So with that, have a good evening.